Chapter 4364. At the same time, Nine Heavens Palace welcomed another 6 people. The aura of these 6 people was very powerful. They were even stronger than the Rain Sovereign, Ice Sovereign, and other major divine techniques. One of them was even comparable to Supreme Cloud and Beast Sovereign. That's right. The 6 people were Little Demon Child, the old man with straw sandals, the burly man, the old woman in green robe, the middle-aged man in golden robe, and the enchanting woman. However, compared to the old man with straw sandals and others, Little Demon Child seemed particularly reserved. Wang Daoyuan looked at the 6 people and chuckled. "I didn't expect to disturb you." His eyes inadvertently glanced at Little Demon Child with a hint of sarcasm. Li Changhe and others also looked at Little Demon Child with a faint smile. Little Demon Child lowered his head, feeling ashamed and resentful. "We're all old friends. Friends should be more tolerant." The old man with straw sandals chuckled. He was still wearing a pair of broken straw sandals as usual. His sloppy appearance was comparable to Lin Yi's master. "You have to be honest. Someone has been arrogant and domineering in the ancient world for so many years. Have we ever said anything? If you didn't want to hurt young Lord's younger brother this time, I'm afraid even young Lord wouldn't say anything. However, I really admire his courage. He dares to touch young Lord's younger brother." Wang Qi and others chuckled, and the sarcasm in their words became more obvious. The middle-aged man in golden robe smiled. "This matter is really like a flood rushing to the Dragon King's temple. I hope you can be magnanimous and don't bother with him. He is a powerhouse in the great perfection undead realm. How dare we bother with him?" Fan Yunzhang chuckled. He didn't hide his sarcasm towards Little Demon Child. Little Demon Child clenched his hands, stared at the group of people, and said gloomily, "I really came to ask for a rebuff." After saying that, he turned and left. "What are you doing?" The old man with straw sandals grabbed him and transmitted his voice. "If you don't take this opportunity to resolve this matter now, how can you survive in the ancient world in the future?" "I want to resolve this matter, but look at their attitude." Little Demon Child said angrily, "You deserve it." "Who told you to be so arrogant? Let me tell you, if you can't get Qin Feiyang's forgiveness, all creatures in the ancient world will reject you in the future." "You think you're so strong that you don't care? Don't forget, even if Qin Feiyang leaves, there's still Yizhong, the 4 guardians. With their strength, killing you is as easy as flipping their hands. In the past, Boss Yi didn't attack you because you contributed to the ancient realm. But you have to know that no matter who it is, there is a limit. Once this limit is exceeded, even a person with a good temper will get angry." The old man thought to himself. The Little Demon Child's eyes trembled. "That's right. The current Qin Feiyang can even create a time formation that lasts 5,000 years in a day. It's clear how powerful he is. This time, he must have brought back a lot of fortunes." The enchanting woman transmitted her voice. Her charming eyes were like silk and filled with expectation. Little Demon Boy's heart skipped a beat. If that was the case, then wouldn't he be able to become even more powerful if he were to casually obtain a bit of fortune? But if he continued to stay here, he would definitely continue to suffer from a lot of disdain. He was very conflicted. Wang. At this moment, a space-time tunnel appeared. A golden-robed young man slowly walked out, holding the hand of a woman. Everyone looked at this man and woman with suspicious looks. The man and woman were the White-Eyed Wolf and Hu. However, no one had seen the White-Eyed Wolf's human form. As for Hu, there was no doubt that they were even more unfamiliar with her. So, no one recognized the White-Eyed Wolf's identity. So many people. The White-Eyed Wolf looked at the crowd at the top of the mountain and the stairway to heaven. He couldn't help but be stunned. "Are they all old friends?" Hu asked in a low voice. The White-Eyed Wolf scanned the crowd. His gaze finally fell on Wang Daoyuan. "Elder Wei, the little demon child, and the others. He bared his teeth and said, "There are indeed many old friends." "You too are?" Elder Way stepped forward and asked doubtfully. The white-eyed wolf raised the corner of his mouth and laughed. "I'm here to cause trouble." "What? Cause trouble?" He must be crazy. Doesn't he know that Senior Brother Chin and Senior Brother Crazy have returned to the ancient realm? And now all the big shots of the ancient realm are at the Empyrean Palace. Cause trouble? He's not here to court death. The disciples of the Empyrean Palace were stunned. At the same time, hearing this, the faces of Wang Daoyuan and the others couldn't help but sink. The straw sandals old man sized up the white-eyed wolf and said, "Little demon child, now is the time for you to show off." Because the white-eyed wolf and Ho Wu had restrained their auras, they looked like ordinary people, so they didn't take them seriously. Boom! The little demon child took a step forward. The majesty of the great perfection, imperishable stage surged toward the white-eyed wolf and Ho Wu like a tide. Yo! Great perfection, imperishable stage! Your cultivation is quite fast. The white-eyed wolf laughed strangely. However, with a gentle wave of his hand, the little demon child's majesty collapsed on the spot. What? Everyone's expression changed greatly. With a wave of his hand, he broke the little demon child's majesty. How strong was this person? Would such a joyous day turn into a disaster? The group of people were all deeply worried. A mere great perfection, imperishable stage dares to come out and make a fuss. How many lives do you have for me to kill? The white-eyed wolf smiled coldly. The majesty of a great perfection, sovereign rolled out. In an instant, everyone trembled as if they had fallen into a bottomless abyss. So strong! Who the hell are you? Elder Wei shouted angrily. Hee, the white-eyed wolf was about to speak. However, at this moment, another space-time tunnel appeared. Qin Feiyang, Mu Qing, Shangguan Qiu, Miss Fairy, Li Feng, and Yi Xiaochuan walked out one after another. Looking at the situation at the top of the mountain, Shangguan Qiu, Miss Fairy, and Yi Xiaochuan were shocked. Qin Feiyang, Mu Qing, and Li Feng looked at each other speechlessly. This wolf cub is starting to cause trouble again. Young master. Qin Feiyang, Senior Brother Qin. It's really him. At the same time, seeing Qin Feiyang appear, Elder Wei, Wang Daoyuan, Little Demon Kid, and the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace couldn't help but be excited. Senior Brother Qin is back. You're all finished. How dare you come to our Nine Heavens Palace to cause trouble? Even if you have 9 lives, it won't be enough for you to die. Everyone stared at the white-eyed wolf angrily. The white-eyed wolf scanned the crowd and looked at Qin Feiyang. He said angrily, "Can't you come back later? How boring." Everyone was surprised. This person knows Qin Feiyang? Brother Wolf, you're the boring one. Won't you feel good if you don't tease people for a day? Li Feng looked at him speechlessly. Brother Wolf? Hearing this name, Shangguan Qiu and Miss Fairy immediately stared at the white-eyed wolf. Their eyes were filled with surprise. They had never seen the white-eyed wolf's human form. So when they heard Li Feng's name, they couldn't help but think of the white-eyed wolf. Fire Dance, you should really take care of him. Mu Qing shook her head. It's not like you don't know his character. How can I take care of him? Fire Dance sighed helplessly. Then she glared at the white-eyed wolf and said angrily, "Why don't you put away your bastard aura?" Okay. The white-eyed wolf shrunk his neck and quickly nodded. He withdrew his pressure. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan and the others finally regained their freedom. They hurriedly ran in front of Qin Feiyang, bowed and shouted in unison, "Your subordinates respectfully welcome the return of the young lord." Looking at these familiar faces, a smile crept onto Qin Feiyang's face. Although they had been apart for many years, their feelings were still there. "I'm sorry to have startled you." This bastard is none other than the white-eyed wolf you're familiar with. Next to him is his lover, Fire Dance. Qin Feiyang introduced with a smile. What? Everyone immediately looked at the white-eyed wolf. Don't blame me. It's your lack of eyesight that didn't recognize me. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. It's really you. You really scared us to death. We thought it was some powerful enemy who came to seek revenge. It's not easy for us to get together. Can you not make such a joke? Also, how did you transform into a human? Didn't you used to be very disdainful of this? Wang Daoyuan and the others immediately surrounded the ingrate and started talking at the same time. Some were complaining while others were curious. What a bastard. Looking at the white-eyed wolf, Old Man Wei couldn't help laughing and scolding. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. The little demon child and the others looked at each other, shocked. It turned out to be this wolf cub. This strength was too terrifying, wasn't it? Aren't you annoying? Chattering like a group of chicks. Looking at Wang Daoyuan and the others, the white-eyed wolf said with a dark face, You're really heartless. We're just happy to see you. Wang Daoyuan pursed his lips and looked at Huwu. He chuckled and said, Brother Wolf, is this really sister-in-law? How can this be fake? The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. Hello, sister-in-law. Immediately, a group of people greeted Huwu. Huwu looked at this scene and couldn't help but want to laugh. One could imagine a group of middle-aged men and old men addressing a young woman as sister-in-law. How comical would that be? Brother Wolf, can you not make such a joke next time? Even I was shocked. Shangguan Qiu looked at the white-eyed wolf unhappily. So timid? Why are you still the chief pavilion master? Take the opportunity to abdicate. The white-eyed wolf despised her. You. Shangguan Qiu was trembling with anger. Blame her for being timid? Don't you know how strong you are? Anyone would be scared. Who is this kid? Is he another orphan you picked up from somewhere? The white-eyed wolf walked to Qin Feiyang and looked at Yi Xiaochuan suspiciously. Orphan? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He was cursing Hua Yi and Shangguan Fenglan. Uncle Wolf, why can't you talk nicely? My father and mother are still alive and well. Yi Xiaochuan was also speechless. Uncle? The white-eyed wolf was slightly stunned. Yi Xiaochuan rolled his eyes and ignored the ingrate. He quickly ran in front of Fire Dance and said with a fawning smile, Hello, Annie. Auntie is really beautiful. For Uncle Wolf to be able to marry you, he must have accumulated good karma in his previous life. He was also a little clever. He could tell at a glance that Huwu was the one in charge. Huwu looked at this little guy in shock and couldn't help but laugh. Who is this bastard kid? The white-eyed wolf's face darkened. Why was he so annoying? End of chapter. Chapter 43, 65. Him? You'll find out later. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Still keeping me in suspense. The white-eyed wolf was stunned, and he became even more expectant. If he knew Qin Feiyang well, he would not be like this if he was an ordinary person. The straw sandals old man and the others walked up and looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile. It's been so many years, and you're still so handsome. You're getting younger and younger. It seems that you've been living well in the ancient world. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Are you serious? The enchanting woman did not care about the situation at all. She went up to Qin Feiyang and hugged Qin Feiyang's arm. Qin Feiyang's expression didn't change at all. He was used to this woman's style. She was seductive, open and bold. Of course I'm serious. Qin Feiyang chuckled and looked at the middle-aged man in gold. But aren't you afraid that your husband will be jealous if you hug another man like this? Will you be jealous? The enchanting woman looked at the middle-aged man in gold. As long as you're happy. The middle-aged man in gold grinned and kept glancing at Shangguan Qiu, Miss Celestial and Fire Dance. What a pair of weirdos. Miss Celestial was speechless. Why did they get married if they were so flirtatious? When the white-eyed wolf saw the golden-clad, middle-aged man's gaze lingering on Fire Dance, he said with a sullen expression, "Hey, hey, hey! I say, that's enough. Don't keep looking. Hey, Brother Wolf is jealous." The enchanting woman hugged the white-eyed wolf's arm again and smiled. "Don't be jealous. He's looking at your wife, so you can look at his wife too. Not only can you look, but you can also." As she spoke, she used her finger to stroke the white-eyed wolf's chest. It was very flirtatious. "Stop joking." The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched, and he pushed the woman away. Although he already knew the couple's character, he still could not take it. He did not mind. However, the person next to him would definitely be angry later. At that time, wouldn't he have to serve him according to the family rules? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He walked up to Elder Wei and apologized. "I'm really sorry to trouble you to wait for us here." "What are you talking about? It's not like you don't know that this old man has been guarding this place all year round. This is just a convenient matter." Elder Wei waved his hand and smiled, appearing amiable. "Are they all here?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Everyone who should be here is here. Those who shouldn't have come. Wang Daoyuan interrupted. This person who shouldn't have come was naturally the little demon child. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Wang Daoyuan and then at little demon child. He smiled and said, "It's all in the past. Don't mention it. Let's go up. Little demon child, you can come with us." After saying that, he walked up. The others hurriedly followed. Little demon child was in a very awkward situation. He couldn't leave or stay. In the end, under the persuasion of the straw, sandal old man and the others, he finally stepped on the stone stairs. Senior Brother Qin. So many big shots came for him. How impressive! And his appearance is exactly the same as the statue of our Empyrean Palace. Senior Brother, can you tell me about the past deeds of Senior Brother Qin and the others? Some young disciples were full of curiosity. Their legendary deeds can't be finished in 10 days or half a month. You just have to remember one thing. Our Empyrean Palace can have today's status, and the peace of our ancient world is all because of them. They are the guardians of our ancient world. Empyrean Palace. In front of the gate, 2 statues stood majestically. These 2 statues were Qin Feiyang and the madman. "Why isn't my figure here? Are you looking down on me?" The white-eyed wolf was dissatisfied. Old Wei chuckled. "Don't blame us. After all, you didn't make any great contributions to our ancient world back then. I didn't expect the people of Empyrean Palace to treat me so differently. It's too sad." The white-eyed wolf shook his head and sighed. Back in the ancient world, he didn't do anything because he had been cultivating in seclusion in the black tortoise world. It's still not too late to leave. Mu Qing looked at him mockingly. "Leave? You're thinking too much. Do you think I'm someone who can't take a blow?" The white-eyed wolf smiled disdainfully. He pulled Fire Dance and stepped into Empyrean Palace first. A familiar scene immediately entered their line of sight. Although so many years had passed, Empyrean Palace hadn't changed much. There were more disciples inside. Everyone gathered in the sky above the mountains and rivers. It could be described as a sea of people looking at Qin Feiyang and the others from afar. "It's really Qin Feiyang. What are you all standing there for? It's not easy to see someone you've admired for a long time. Hurry up and say hello." A familiar voice rang out. Qin Feiyang looked in the direction of the voice and saw a woman standing in front of the crowd. She was wearing a tight suit and looked valiant. "Wang Yin." Qin Feiyang chuckled. "Huh, you still remember me?" Wang Yin looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. "Of course I remember." Qin Feiyang nodded. Wang Yin suddenly had a feeling of being overwhelmed by the favor. Back then in Empyrean Palace, she was just a small character. Later, because of Qin Feiyang, she stayed by Shangguan Fenglan's side. That was why she had today's status and achievements. In other words, everything she had now was given to her by Qin Feiyang. It's been so many years. How have you been? Are you still single? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. When Wang Yun heard this, her cheeks suddenly turned red. Why did he ask such an awkward question the moment they met? Ha ha! Qin Feiyang laughed heartily. Wang Yun was helpless. She looked at the disciples behind her and said, "Are they all wood?" The disciples looked at each other and shouted in unison, "Greetings, Senior Brother Qin." "Welcome back, Senior Brother Qin." Qin Feiyang was startled, looked at Wang Yun helplessly and said, "There's no need to make such a big, welcoming ceremony. Ordinary people definitely don't need it, but you're not an ordinary person." Wang Yun smiled slyly. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily, looked at the disciples in front of him and said, "Thank you for everyone's love. You don't have to be so reserved. I will always be a disciple of Empyrean Palace, and will always be your senior brother." Everyone looked at the sincere face of Qin Feiyang and was a little surprised. Wasn't it rumored that this senior brother Qin was very ferocious? Why did he look so amiable now? "I didn't prepare any greeting gifts, so I'll give you a time formation. I hope you can cultivate well and work hard to become the future pillars of the ancient realm." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. With a wave of his hand, a time formation of 5,000 years per day appeared and merged with the ground below. "Old Wei, your Empyrean Palace is blessed. This is a time formation of 5,000 years per day." Wang Daoyuan chuckled. "What? A time formation of 5,000 years per day?" Old Wei's eyes trembled. When the disciples and upper management heard this, they looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Even the people of the Divine Prefecture had never heard of such a time formation, let alone the people of Empyrean Palace. This was a shocking thing. Wang Yun recovered and shouted, "Why aren't you thanking your senior, Brother Qin?" "Thank you, Senior Brother Qin. We will definitely work hard." All the disciples shouted excitedly. This was the best greeting gift for them. With this time formation, their cultivation speed would increase exponentially. Even Elder Wei expressed his gratitude repeatedly. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at Old Wei with a smile. "I also came from Empyrean Palace. Now that I'm back, I must do something for Empyrean Palace." "It's rare." Old Wei sighed. There weren't many people in this world who knew how to repay kindness. Moreover, even if Empyrean Palace had once done Qin Feiyang a favor, Qin Feiyang had already repaid it back when he was in the ancient world. Even so, Qin Feiyang still remembered this place. To be able to meet this kid, it was not only the ancient world's blessing, but also his Empyrean Palace's blessing. "All right, everyone disperse." Taking a deep breath, Old Wei waved his hand and smiled at the surrounding disciples, then led Qin Feiyang and the others to fly to the back mountain of Empyrean Palace. Back mountain, green mountains and clear waters, the scenery was pleasant. At this moment, there were already quite a few people sitting by the side of a lake. They were chatting and laughing merrily. The ones in the lead were naturally the four guardians and Yizhong, followed by Sovereign Beast and Supreme Cloud. Frenzy and Zhuo Shaoxian were sitting next to Great Elder. Great Elder looked at this well-behaved granddaughter-in-law, and his old face was about to bloom with a smile. Zhuo Shaoxian was still a little uncomfortable being suddenly doted by this old man. The smile on Hua Yi and Shangguan Fenglan's faces never disappeared. In contrast, Hua Yi was more looking forward to it, because for Qin Feiyang, he had always regarded him as a brother. Yi Zhong looked up at the noisy mountain outside and smiled. "There's a big movement outside. It should be these little guys coming. Apart from them, there really isn't anyone else who can cause such a big commotion." Supreme Cloud chuckled. "Soon, figures entered everyone's sight, one after another. Except for Yi Zhong, Frenzy, Lin Yi, and the four guardians all got up and looked at the group of people coming from the void in the distance. Second uncle, they are all there. Yi Xiaochuan pointed to the crowd below and said. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and looked at those familiar faces. A smile immediately appeared on his face. Immediately, he landed straight by the lake. Hua immediately stepped forward, hugged Qin Feiyang and exclaimed, Brother, after so many years, you are finally willing to come back. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and smiled bitterly. Don't be so mushy, okay? People who don't know will think that we have a special relationship. Special relationship? Bah. Don't disgust me. I'm a serious man and I also like women. Hua Yi let go of Qin Feiyang and scolded. White-eyed Wolf glanced at Shangguan Fenglan next to him and joked, Which woman do you like? Of course I like. Hua Yi was about to speak, but he suddenly felt a murderous gaze. He quickly coughed, hugged Shangguan Fenglan, and said, Of course I like my Laner. What a strong desire to survive. Old man. Shangguan Fenglan blushed. Only then did Hua Yi react. He stared at the white-eyed wolf and frowned. No, who are you? I'm your brother. The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes. My brother? Hua Yi was taken aback. Yi Zhong, the four guardians, the great elder, Supreme Cloud, and others also looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. This person was indeed unfamiliar. End of this chapter. Chapter 43-66. White-eyed Wolf. Madman said faintly from the side. Ah! White-eyed Wolf. Everyone looked at Madman in shock. Madman pursed his lips and said, Other than him, who else would dig a hole for Hua Yi? What are you talking about? How is this digging a hole? I'm just asking the truth. Which woman does he like? After all, he used to have a lot of women. White-eyed Wolf stared at Madman with dissatisfaction. Stop. Hua Yi listened to these words and felt that something was wrong. He used to have a lot of women. Many? He didn't even know. This bastard was still digging a hole for him? Everyone else laughed. It was indeed the style of this wolf cub. He would dig a hole for others whenever he disagreed. Yi Shua smiled and said, You're quite handsome like this. Io. White-eyed Wolf immediately beamed and looked at Yi Shua. You have the best taste here. How is it? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you want me to introduce you to one? Yi Shua's mouth twitched. She regretted it. She shouldn't have talked to this guy. Not a single word was pleasant to hear. Don't tell me you're still single? That's a little surprising. Little girl, don't set your sights too high. After all, a man like me who is handsome and affectionate is already extinct in this world. White-eyed Wolf touched his chin and chuckled. He didn't know how to write the word thick-skinned. Oh my God, who'll save me? Yi Shua looked at the sky speechlessly. Ha! Everyone else laughed. This familiar atmosphere was really nostalgic. As long as White-eyed Wolf was around, it would never be boring. Okay. Sit down and talk. Shangguan Fenglan called out. White-eyed Wolf said, Do you have good wine and dishes prepared? If not, I'll leave immediately. Go, no one is tying you up. Shangguan Fenglan's face darkened. You want me to leave? I won't leave. Little E, come. I've prepared a gift for you. The white-eyed wolf waved at Hua Yi. What gift? Hua Yi was suspicious. Everyone looked at the white-eyed wolf in confusion. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand, and a large pile of wine jars appeared. There were probably thousands of them. Even though they were tightly sealed, one could still smell the intoxicating wine fragrance. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth and said, These are all divine brews. How about it? Bro, aren't you a good friend? Divine wine? Hua Yi's eyes lit up and he laughed. Brother Wolf, you really are my big brother. Shangguan Fenglan's face darkened when she saw this scene. What she hated the most was Hua Yi drinking. Because of this, After teaching him a lesson many times, Hua-yi also restrained himself. But she didn't expect that the white-eyed wolf would take out so many wines, and they were all divine brews. Wasn't he deliberately trying to anger her? Wait, there's still that brat. Suddenly, Shangguan Finglan's expression changed, and she quickly looked at Yi Xiaochuan. Sure enough, when Yi Xiaochuan saw the divine wine, he immediately couldn't control himself and rushed to Hui's side. Brat, what are you doing? Hua-yi was stunned and immediately glared at Yi Xiaochuan. Dad, we'll share blessings and misfortunes. Yi Xiaochuan bared his teeth and reached out to grab the wine jar. Hua-yi's face darkened and he slapped it hard. Yi Xiaochuan was in so much pain that he quickly retracted his claws. Then he looked at his heartless father with an aggrieved expression. Brat, what wine are you drinking? Hua-yi glared at him, then took away all of the divine wine. Dad. The white-eyed wolf looked at Hua-yi and Yi Xiaochuan in surprise. Now that Yi Xiaochuan and Hua-yi were standing together, they were simply too similar. That's right. This little guy is the child of Hua-yi and Shangguan Fenglan. His name is Yi Xiaochuan. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Like father, like son. This saying was not false at all. Damn. Your child is already so big? The white-eyed wolf looked at Hua-yi and Shangguan Fenglan in astonishment. It's none of your business. Shangguan Fenglan snorted coldly. How is it? Brother, I'm amazing. Hua-yi followed the white-eyed wolf and put his arm around his shoulder. Amazing. The white-eyed wolf nodded and looked at the dissatisfied Shangguan Fenglan. His eyes turned slightly and he said to Yi Xiaochuan, Kid, come here. Uncle Wolf, what can I do for you? Yi Xiaochuan hurriedly ran in front of the white-eyed wolf, his face full of flattery. Uncle, I like you very much. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Looking at the white-eyed wolf like this, Shangguan Fenglan suddenly had an uneasy premonition in her heart. Immediately after, her uneasiness took place. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand again, and a large pile of divine wine appeared. He said very heroically, This is Uncle's gift to you. Let me tell you, men should eat meat and drink wine. Don't learn from your Uncle Qin. It's not interesting at all, understand? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Uncle Wolf. Yi Xiaochuan nodded repeatedly, his face full of excitement. But at this moment, whether it was Yi Xiaochuan, the white-eyed wolf, or Hua-yi, they all felt an invisible murderous aura surging over. Hua-yi urged, Brat, hurry up and put it away. Wait for your mother to get angry. Don't even think about leaving a jar behind. Yi Xiaochuan shuddered and hurriedly put the divine wine into his universe ring. Then he turned to look at Shangguan Fenglan and smiled embarrassedly. Mom, there are so many elders here. Leave your son some face. Looking at the innocent, wronged, and fawning Yi Xiaochuan, Shangguan Fenglan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yi Zhong and the others also couldn't help but laugh. This father and son pair was also a pair of weirdos. I haven't been so happy in a long time. Yi Zhong laughed. As he spoke, he glanced at the little demon child, but didn't say much. Since Qin Feiyang brought the little demon child here, it meant that Qin Feiyang didn't pursue the matter. Since Qin Feiyang didn't pursue the matter, he naturally had nothing to pursue either. Yes, it's not just that I haven't been so happy in a long time. It's also been a long time since everyone gathered like this. Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast nodded. They were all busy with their own things. It was really quite difficult to get together. Wang Daoyuan asked curiously, Young Master, Brother Wolf, Frenzy, what's your cultivation base now? Hearing this question, the others also looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, their eyes full of curiosity. Our cultivation base? I'm afraid I'll scare you to death if I tell you. White-eyed Wolf smiled proudly. Then hurry up and scare us to death. Li Changhe and the others jeered. Then sit tight. Our current cultivation base has reached the peak of this world. Complete sovereign realm, White-Eyed Wolf said. Complete sovereign realm? So fast! Wait a minute, is complete sovereign realm the peak of cultivation? It seems that the sovereign realm is above the imperishable realm. Everyone was surprised. Yes, White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Qin pursed his lips and said, if that's the case, it's not that great. Now, many people in the ancient world have stepped into the imperishable realm. Boy, you're too arrogant. How dare you say such words? White-Eyed Wolf glanced at Qin. Did I say something wrong? Qin was a little flustered. Indeed, you're wrong. There are strong and weak, complete, sovereign realm. Comprehending the fifth profound of the 6 laws can step into the complete, sovereign realm. But above the fifth profound, there is the supreme profound and ultimate profound. The supreme profound and ultimate profound are countless times more difficult than the fifth profound. Even in the sky cloud realm, the number of people who can comprehend the ultimate profound can be counted on one hand. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. There are so many profound laws. Everyone was shocked. It was beyond their imagination. Then, Big Brother, have you comprehended the ultimate profound? Qin Yin looked at Qin Feiyang. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. Yes. Qin Yin was stunned and hurriedly asked, how many? Quite a lot. Space-time law, time law, destruction law, cause and effect law, death law, and life and death law. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? So many? It's actually the strongest law. Everyone was dumbfounded. Wait, what is the life and death law that you mentioned? Hua Yi stared at Qin Feiyang in bewilderment. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, the life and death law is an existence that surpasses the strongest law. Profound of the same level can crush the strongest law. Damn, Hua Yi was stunned. The life and death law is very difficult to comprehend. In today's world, as far as we know, there is only Qin Feiyang, the inner demons, and another juggernaut. Mu Qing said, inner demons? Juggernaut. Everyone was stunned. Qin Li's spirit shook as he asked, Big Brother, this heart demon, is it referring to that heart demon of yours? Qin Feiyang nodded. But didn't Father say that he is already dead? There is also Big Cousin. Qin Li and the others were shocked. They're not dead. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Not dead. Everyone was in disbelief. It's a long story. I came back this time, mainly to see you all. I don't intend to talk about anything else. Qin Feiyang smiled and said. Everyone looked at each other. Was there something else that was hard to say? All right, let's end this topic here. As for our strength, when you all comprehend the ultimate profound in the future, you will naturally know. Qin Feiyang smiled and glanced at his friends, elders, and former subordinates in front of him. This time, besides coming back to see everyone, I also intend to send some good fortune to the ancient world. We have all seen the good fortune you sent. With these time arrays, our ancient world will definitely produce many talents in the future. The sloppy old man chuckled. The other 3 guardians also had gratified expressions. No matter how strong this kid became, he did not forget about the ancient world. No, what kind of good fortune can a mere time array be considered? Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. The 4 guardians were astonished. A 5,000 years a day time array is not a good fortune? That's why I said that you all have not seen the world. A mere 5,000 years a day time array, as long as you comprehend the ultimate profound, you will have the ability to open it. The White-Eyed Wolf despised them. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but shake their heads and smile bitterly. The ultimate profound of the time law, for people like them, was simply an untouchable existence. First, I will help all of you open the door of potential. Although all of you have opened the door of potential before, not all of you have opened it. Another one. In my hands there are still many ultimate profound inheritances. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Although he only had 3,000 ultimate profundity inheritances left, he still had many ordinary ultimate profundity inheritances and ultimate profundity inheritances. Ultimate profound inheritances. What is that? Everyone's face was full of suspicion. They had never heard of such things. End of this chapter. Chapter 4367. The epitome of the laws. In other words, it is the predecessor of the laws. We can rely on the epitome of the laws to quickly comprehend the laws. The inheritance of the ultimate mysteries is easier to understand. As long as you integrate the inheritance, you can quickly master the ultimate mysteries and become the strongest existence in this world. Qin Feiyang explained with a smile. What? Everyone looked at each other. There was such an inheritance in the world. They had never heard of it before. We only slowly learned about these things when we came to the sky cloud realm. It's normal that you don't know. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, an interspatial ring appeared, and he handed it to Yi Zhong. What is it? Yi Zhong was a little suspicious. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, This is the epitome of the laws and inheritance of the ultimate mysteries that I have prepared long ago. Yi Zhong was startled at once. He hurriedly returned the cosmos ring to Qin Feiyang and said, while shaking his head, You'd better keep these things for yourselves. After all, you're adventuring and will have to face many unknown powerful enemies. That's right. It's useless for you to give them to us. It's better to keep them to strengthen your own strength. Cloud Sovereign and Beast Sovereign also spoke one after another. Although they were indeed eager for these things, it was not easy for Qin Feiyang and the others to wander outside. In the past, they were very selfish. No matter what good things they had, the first thing they thought of was themselves. But now, they had changed a lot and could consider others. Indeed, now that the ancient realm is peaceful, we don't need these things. We can slowly comprehend them ourselves. The four guardians said one after another. The world is peaceful, Qin Feiyang murmured. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, Zhuo Shaoxian, Fire Dance, Li Feng, and Mu Qing also lowered their heads. There was a touch of melancholy between their brows. What's wrong? Are we wrong? The four guardians looked at them suspiciously. Yes, of course. The ancient realm is indeed peaceful now. Qin Feiyang smiled, but then he changed the topic and sighed. But for the peace of the ancient realm, the sky cloud realm also sacrificed a lot. What does the peace of the ancient realm have to do with the sky cloud realm? Someone was puzzled. These two places didn't seem to be related at all. Of course, it has a relationship. Back then, if it wasn't for the Sky Cloud Realm's Blood Demon King leading the entire Blood Demon clan to the Underworld King's hell, not just the ancient realm, but even Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent would have been destroyed. As such, no matter if it's the current ancient realm, Great Qin, or the Forgotten Continent, they all need to be able to protect themselves. Better to be safe than sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yi Zhong and the others looked at each other. The Blood Demon clan is actually not a native of the Nether King's Hell. They originally belonged to the Sky Cloud Realm and were one of the strongest clans in the Sky Cloud Realm. Once, there was a strong enemy who wanted to invade the lower realm. The Blood Demon went to the Hell to stop them. The Blood Devils you saw in the Underworld King's Hell are the descendants of these Blood Devils. But now, they have returned to the Sky Cloud Realm. The Hell is also very different from before. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. So that's how it is. Yi Zhong nodded in realization. Since the Blood Demon has returned to the Sky Cloud Realm, and you are the strongest in the Sky Cloud Realm, what are we worried about? Yes, there is no need to worry at all. If there is no need to worry, Why did you give us the inheritance? Wait, could it be that we will face some danger next? The people here were not stupid. After a little consideration, they figured out the danger behind. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. They were not so easy to fool. He waved his hand and said, "Don't think too much. We will take care of everything. You just have to listen to our arrangements. After all, we will not harm you, right?" After saying that, Qin Feiyang handed the interspatial ring to Yi Zhong. Yi Zhong took a deep look at Qin Feiyang and nodded with a smile. "Well, we will listen to the arrangement. Who told you to be stronger than us now?" Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. Yi Zhong curiously took out the inheritance of an ultimate, profound meaning. This was the inheritance of the law of swords. The sword qi and sharpness contained in the inheritance shocked everyone present. Immediately after, he had another inheritance of the law of death's ultimate, profound meaning. Immediately, a terrifying aura of death shrouded in all directions. In an instant, everyone felt as if they were trapped in the azure hell, drowned in the aura of death. "Little demon child, how is it? I was right. He must have brought back good fortune this time." The straw-sandal old man stared at the two inheritances and transmitted his voice to Little Demon Child. Little Demon Child clenched his fists, his eyes full of desire. There are 50,000 law miniatures. There are also 100,000 ordinary laws, ultimate, profound, meaning inheritances. There are a total of 1,000 supreme laws, ultimate, profound, meaning inheritances. 1,000, that's 6,000. Qin Feiyang laughed. So many? Everyone was deeply shocked once again. They originally thought that there would only be a few dozen at most. After all, this was the inheritance of the ultimate, profound meaning. They never expected that there would be more than 100,000 ordinary laws and supreme laws, ultimate, profound, meaning inheritances. It was unbelievable. Qin Xian asked puzzledly, "Big brother, why do the inheritance of the supreme law's ultimate, profound meaning have to be calculated in terms of portions?" "This involves the will of the heavenly Tao." Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the white-eyed wolf. The will of the heavenly Tao. Everyone looked at each other and looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. The white-eyed wolf grinned and waved his hand. 6 supreme laws' ultimate, profound meanings instantly appeared in the sky. "Damn! Destruction law, space-time law, time law, life law, death law, cause and effect law, Brother Wolf. You also grasp so many supreme laws' ultimate, profound meanings." Wang Daoyuan and the others looked at the white-eyed wolf in shock. Calm down, calm down." The white-eyed wolf waved his hand. He had a smug look on his face. "These are the ordinary, ultimate, profound meanings. But if the will of the heavenly Tao is activated, these 6 ultimate, profound meanings will be even stronger." Qin Feiyang nodded at the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf's mind moved, and the will of the heavenly Tao was activated. The aura of the 6 ultimate, profound meanings rose crazily. The entire Nine-Heaven Palace was trembling, shocking countless people. No, it wasn't just the Nine-Heaven Palace. The entire northern region was shaking. It was as if doomsday had arrived. This, Yi Zhong and the others were dumbfounded. This ancient world is so weak. It can't even withstand this bit of aura. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. With a wave of his hand, the 6 ultimate, profound meanings dissipated. If this continued, the Nine-Heaven Palace would definitely collapse. The northern region would also fall into a calamity. Yi Zhong and the others came back to their senses and realized that they were already drenched in cold sweat. The white-eyed wolf's 6 ultimate, profound meanings and the will of the heavenly Tao haven't fully erupted yet. Otherwise, it would be even more terrifying. It can be said that right now, with his power alone, he can directly destroy the entire ancient realm. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Not fully erupted yet? Everyone looked at each other with shock in their hearts. Just how terrifying were the ultimate, profound meanings and the will of the heavenly Tao. Ultimate, profound meanings with and without the will of the heavenly Tao belong to two completely different levels. And to grasp the will of the heavenly Tao, the necessary condition is to grasp the six ultimate, profound meanings. At this point, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Qin Li and said with a smile, "Therefore, we usually combine the six different ultimate profundities of ultimate laws into one." Qin Li pondered for a while and said, "You mean as long as we integrate this inheritance, we can grasp the will of the heavenly Tao?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and then said, "Of course, there are also dual wills of the heavenly Tao in this world. But to grasp dual wills of the heavenly Tao is very difficult. One needs to comprehend the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, and dual wills of the heavenly Tao." Everyone was shocked. Qin Yi blinked her big eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang, asking, "So, big brother, you've grasped dual wills of the heavenly Tao?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. "Big brother, how strong are you? Can you let us see?" Qin Xian stared straight at Qin Feiyang. "No, the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, coupled with dual wills of the heavenly Tao. Even if I suppress my aura to the lowest, I can still destroy the 9-heaven palace." Qin Feiyang smiled. "So strong?" Qin Xian was shocked. What realm had Big Brother's strength reached? Qin Feiyang looked at his brothers and sisters and smiled. "Although Senior Brother and I, the White-Eyed Wolf, are indeed quite strong now, there are still existences stronger than us. So, you guys don't have to treat us as your goal, and you can't be arrogant because you still have a long way to go. Forget it. We'll choose to catch up with you guys first." The 7 of them shook their heads and smiled bitterly. If they couldn't even catch up with Big Brother, how could they catch up with those stronger than him? "You guys don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Your Big Brother is comforting you. Do you really think you can catch up with us?" The White-Eyed Wolf looked at the 7 of them in disdain. "Brother Wolf, I'm not convinced by your words. Haven't you heard of this saying? The student surpasses the master." Qin Xian bared his teeth. "Fine, work hard. I'm waiting to see." The White-Eyed Wolf chuckled. "Fine, I'll catch up with you guys sooner or later." Qin Xian snorted coldly. He didn't know where he got his confidence from. However, it was a good thing to have this kind of confidence. After all, young people had to dare to think, dare to do, and dare to fight. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked at Yi Zhong and said, "Master, you can pass these law miniatures and the inheritance of the ultimate profound meaning of ordinary laws to other creatures in the ancient world through some channels. For example, let everyone obtain these things through a fair competition. But these 1,000 ultimate profound meaning inheritances of the strongest laws are of great importance. You have to take care of them carefully and distribute them personally." Qin Feiyang solemnly reminded. In fact, it could be summed up in one sentence. They definitely couldn't give them to people with bad intentions. "I understand." Yi Zhong took a deep breath and looked at the universe ring in his hand as if it weighed 10,000 pounds, because this was a responsibility that concerned the future of the ancient world. End of chapter. Chapter 4368. The others could understand the hidden meaning of Qin Feiyang's words. The green-robed old woman glanced at Little Demon Child and transmitted her voice to the straw-shoe old man. "It seems that it won't be easy for Little Demon Child to get these inheritances." "He asked for it. Why is he so arrogant all day?" The burly man secretly said. "Yes, whether he can get the inheritances or not has nothing to do with us. Anyway, Yi Zhong will definitely not forget us." The enchanting woman and the golden-robed, middle-aged man transmitted their voices. They were really glad that they hadn't been in cahoots with Little Demon Child all these years. Otherwise, even they could only watch helplessly. So, it was better for this person to keep a low profile. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "For these ultimate, profound meaning inheritances, you have to thank one person." "Who?" Everyone was suspicious. "Long Chen." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Long Chen? Isn't he the son of Ice Dragon and Revered Dragon?" Everyone suddenly stood up. How could this matter have anything to do with Long Chen? It has been so long, let's not bother about the past. Moreover, the dragons have been exterminated. Qin Feiyang smiled. "So you have reconciled with them?" Revered Beast asked. "Yes. Over the years, we have fought side by side in the sky cloud realm, advancing and retreating together. Our relationship is very different from before. Even Long Chen's sister, Long Qin, the original princess dragons, and I are like siblings. And all the ultimate, profound meaning inheritances in my hands were obtained with their help." Qin Feiyang explained. "No way. You're as close as siblings with this dragon princess." Shangguan Qiu and Miss Fairy were very surprised. "She has changed a lot. She has also made a lot of contributions to the world." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Even so, everyone still couldn't adapt for a while. That was because this pair of brother and sister were once their mortal enemies. Actually, reconciliation is also a good thing. After all, our feud ended when the dragons were destroyed. On the contrary, we should be thankful, because everyone knows the strength of the ice dragon. If he wants to take revenge on us, we won't be able to fight back at all. Yi Zhong said, "Old Master Yi is right. It's better to squash enmity than to keep it alive." Qin Feiyang and the others were able to completely resolve their grudges with the Long Qin siblings. It can be considered a blessing for the living beings of our ancient world. Because of this, our ancient realm will truly be at peace. The four guardians spoke one after another. Whether it was Qin Feiyang and the others or Long Qin and his sister, they were all admirable young people. Because the grudges between them were obvious to all. The fact that they were able to let go of such a deep grudge showed how magnanimous they were. What about Dragon Sovereign and Ice Dragon? Supreme Cloud asked. "I haven't talked to them officially yet. However, no matter what happens to them in the end, they will definitely not implicate the ancient world." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Yi Zhong hesitated for a moment before asking, "How is she now?" "Pretty good." Qin Feiyang smiled. It seemed that his master still couldn't forget this relationship, because he could hear the concern in Yi Zhong's words. "All right." Yi Zhong put away the Cosmos Ring and said with a smile, "You young people deal with your own affairs. We will only talk about these heavy topics and talk more about happy things." Yes. It's not easy to get together. We must have a few drinks." The wine worm in Yi's stomach had already begun to act up. He turned to look at Shangguan Fenglan and said with an embarrassed smile, "Lan it's better to prepare some good food and drink to entertain everyone." "I think it's you who wants to drink." Shangguan Fenglan rolled her eyes at him and said, "You don't have to worry. I've already ordered someone to prepare it." "Ah, what?" He looked at Shangguan Fenglan in surprise. "Do you really think I'm not sensible? It's rare for your brothers to come back. Moreover, there are so many elders present. Shouldn't I make arrangements in advance?" Shangguan Fenglan rolled her eyes. "My Lan is indeed the best." When Hui heard this, he immediately went up to hug Shangguan Fenglan and kissed her face on the spot. Shangguan Fenglan's face suddenly turned red. She said angrily, "What are you doing? Don't you know where we are?" "I can't help it. I'm proud. You let me marry such an understanding wife." Hui chuckled. "Dad, you're too mushy. Can't you care about the feelings of us underage people?" Yi Xiaochuan put his arm around Qin Xian's shoulder and looked at Hui with a grin. "Get lost. Who's underage?" Qin Xian's face darkened and he kicked Yi Xiaochuan away. "Brother Xian, don't you often say that you're still a teenager in adolescence?" Yi Xiaochuan looked at him with grievance. Call me uncle. Qin Xian's veins were bulging. Just call me brother. Brother, what can you do? Yi Xiaochuan stuck out his tongue and made a face, making Qin Xian so angry that he couldn't help but be irritable. It's good to be young. Yi Zhong looked at the two of them, then turned to look at the four guardians and said with a smile. Yes, the four guardians nodded. Moreover, the young people of this generation were each more outstanding than the last. They were not inferior to Qin Feiyang and the others back then. Not long after, a rotund, middle-aged fatty broke through the air and flew over. This person was the Tower Master of the Heaven Immortal Tower in the North region. Because the headquarters of the Heaven Immortal Tower was now in the Divine Prefecture, the Heaven Immortal Tower in the North region had become a branch. Greetings, Mississippi. Greetings, Lord. The middle-aged fatso landed in front of everyone and bowed. What are you doing here? Miss Tianxian looked at him suspiciously. The middle-aged fatso said respectfully, Master Shengguan sent me a message during the day and asked me to prepare a few tables of banquet to entertain distinguished guests at night. So I'm here to deliver wine and dishes. While speaking, he glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others, his eyes full of awe. As expected, he was here to entertain these important figures. I see. Miss Tianxian smiled in realization. At the same time, Shangguan Fenglan had already taken out a few large dining tables, which seemed to have been prepared in advance. She looked at the middle-aged fatso and said with a smile, Put it on the table. Okay. The middle-aged fatso walked over, took out a universe ring, and took out the dishes one by one. These dishes were placed independently in wooden boxes, and in the wooden boxes there was a kind of crystal that could emit heat, which could ensure that the dishes were hot at all times. It could be seen that they were very attentive. Of course, this was Shangguan Fenglan's instruction, so he didn't dare to be careless. After all, Shangguan Fenglan's status was here, and she was like a sister to Miss Tianxian. In the end, several tables were filled with dishes. Each dish was extremely exquisite, and the aroma made one's appetite soar. Come, come, come. Everyone gather around. It just so happens that Brother Wolf gave me a lot of divine wine. Everyone come and have a taste. Hui called out. Thus a joyous banquet began. Hui, white-eyed wolf, lunatic. All of them were jars after jars. If it were any other time, Shangguan Fenglan would have already flipped out, but today she didn't care, because she knew that Hui was really happy today. However, Yi Xiaochuan received a lot of scolding. Every time he wanted to drink, he would definitely get a knock on his head. According to Shangguan Fenglan's intention, when you get married and start a family, I don't care how much you drink, but now you have to obey my discipline. Old friends reunited, and Qin Feiyang also drank to his heart's content. Laughter could be heard from time to time. For the entire night, not a single person left the venue. Time passed very quickly. The sky began to gradually turn white. Although they drank a lot, no one was drunk. Qin Feiyang looked at the sky, put down his wine cup, and said with a smile, Let's stop here. We still have to return to the Great Qin. Return to the Great Qin? Hui was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, Why are you in such a hurry to go back? Qin Feiyang turned to look at Lunatic and asked, Senior brother, didn't you tell them? No, I don't want to dampen everyone's spirits. Lunatic shook his head. What's the situation? Other than Yi Zhong, everyone else had a suspicious look on their faces. Because only Yi Zhong knew that Qin Feiyang and the others only had 3 days. We can only stay for 3 days this time. A day has already passed. For the remaining 2 days, I want to go back and spend some time with my family. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. 3 days? That's too short. Young master, no matter how busy you are, you don't have to be in such a hurry. Everyone frowned and tried their best to persuade him to stay. They have their own difficulties. Moreover, There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Yi Zhong stood up and looked at everyone with a smile. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang, lunatic, white-eyed wolf, and the others and said with a smile, "Have a good time outside. Don't worry about us." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. The sudden parting made everyone feel very uncomfortable, especially Shangguan Qiu and Wang Yuer. Before they could say a few words, they were going to be separated again. "Don't be like this. As Master said, there will be plenty of time in the future." Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Wang Daoyuan and the others, saying, "You are all people I brought out. You must bear the responsibility of protecting the ancient world and the people." "We will." The group of people nodded heavily. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and looked at them one by one. Finally, his gaze landed on Shangguan Qiu and Wang Yuer, and he said with a smile, "Take care." "You too," the two of them muttered. Their voices were so weak that even they could not hear themselves. They were already trying hard to control their emotions. Otherwise, they would have cried long ago. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. He could only apologize to the two women in front of him in his heart. He turned to look at Qin Li and the others and said, "Come back to the great Qin with me." After saying that, he turned around resolutely, opened a space-time passage, and walked in without looking back. Because if this continued, he was afraid that he would not be willing to leave. Lunatic, Lin Yi, Li Feng, Mu Qing, White-Eyed Wolf, and Fire Dance nodded to everyone and turned to leave. Qin Li and the others looked at each other with a trace of suspicion on their faces. Why did he want them to go back to the great Qin? Could it be that Big Brother was reluctant to part with them and wanted them to accompany him more? "Old Master, we." Qin Li turned to look at Yi Zhong. "Go." Yi Zhong smiled. "We will come back as soon as possible." Qin Li bowed and said, then led Qin Yun and the others into the space-time passage. Looking at the gradually dissipating space-time passage, everyone was silent for a long time. Whether it was their eyes or their faces, there was a strong reluctance. The tears in Shangguan Qiu's eyes finally flowed down uncontrollably. End of this chapter. Chapter 4369. Death Impasse. In front of the entrance to the divine site, Qin Feiyang stood in the void, turning his head and looking in the direction of the Ninth Heaven Palace. His expression was extremely gloomy. "What's wrong?" Lin Yi asked. "Sigh. Parting is really a painful thing." Qin Feiyang sighed. Lin Yi was silent. Indeed, no one in the world is willing to be separated from their loved ones. Especially for people like Qin Feiyang, who particularly values family. Parting is a kind of torture. The madman patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder and comforted. "You have to think about it this way. Our departure is also to protect them and let them live a better life than before. I can only comfort myself like this." Qin Feiyang shook his head with a wry smile, turned around, and stepped into the stone door. Although this day was short, it left him with beautiful memories. This will become the motivation for him to continue on. Great Qin, Demon Dragon Island. The waves rolled, and the sea breeze swept in all directions. Sea beasts roared among the giant wolves. Although they weren't strong, for the people of Great Qin, this was a forbidden area that couldn't be set foot. At the center of the island, after so many years, Qin Feiyang's stone statue still stood majestically, guarding this land. Swish! Suddenly, in the void above, figures appeared out of thin air one after another. The person in the lead was Qin Feiyang. Fire Python was also beside him. Whether it was going to the ancient world or coming to Great Qin, it was much more convenient with Fire Python's help. Seeing this familiar homeland again, Qin Feiyang's yearning for his family became even stronger. "This is Great Qin," Zhuo Xiaoxian, Fire Dance, Li Feng, and the others looked around curiously. Such an ordinary place could actually give birth to Qin Feiyang, Mu Qing, Mu Tianyang, Demon Ancestor, Dong Jingyang, and Lin Yi, these monsters? It's really emotional. Fire Python smiled and said, Brother Qin, I will send you here. Don't you want to go to the imperial capital together? Qin Feiyong was taken aback. I won't go. Moreover, the dragon god is in the underworld king's hell. I don't dare to stay for too long in case he blames me. The fire python smiled. All right, thank you. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. There's no need for thanks between brothers. The fire python rolled its eyes at him and plunged into the sea below without looking back. This was because the altar leading to the miracle was at the bottom of the sea. After watching the fire python leave, Qin Feiyong waved his hand. Mu Tianyang, the demon ancestor, Dong Zhenyang, the mermaid princess, the mermaid emperor, the black-winged emperor, the white-winged emperor, Wang Xiaojie, Qin Qin, Xia Yuan, and the other 64 godly generals appeared. After all, they were all people from Great Qin. They had been looking forward to this day for a long time. I'm back, Dong Zhenyang muttered. Yes. However, we don't have much time. Go back and see your families. Qin Feiyong smiled. Family. Xia Yuan muttered. He shook his head and said, I'm afraid our families are long gone. No, although the martial marquises from back then were killed and crippled. Many of them are still alive. It's just that they are all poor people now. After Qin Feiyong said this, he turned to look at Xia Yuan and the others and said, You won't blame me, right? Why would I blame you? It's because they are useless. The group of godly generals shook their heads. Xia Yuan and the others were the ancestors of those martial marquises. It was also because of Xia Yuan and the others' outstanding military achievements that the various martial marquis families were able to enjoy special treatment in Great Qin. However, later on, they were all deposed by Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong had already told Xia Yuan and the others about this matter back in the ancient world. Xia Yuan and the others were able to follow Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang for so many years, so they were naturally reasonable people. Therefore, they had never said anything. Then let's go. Gather at Demon Dragon Island the day after tomorrow. Of course. If any of you want to stay in Great Qin and enjoy your old age, I won't object. Qin Feiyong smiled and said. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other and smiled, then stepped into the air and left. Soon, only Qin Feiyong, Mermaid Princess, Frenzy, Zhuo Shaoxian, White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Dance, Li Feng, Lin Yi, and Qin Li were left here. Mu Qing also followed Mu Tianyang and returned to their former homeland, Forgotten Continent. I want to go back to Iron Ox Town to take a look. Lin Yi turned to look at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and a time channel appeared. He smiled and said, Go face everything calmly. Lin Yi nodded and turned to step into the time channel. Iron Ox Town? Frenzy was taken aback and said, Is Iron Ox Town the place where you made your fortune back then? Made our fortune? When Qin Feiyong heard this, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Why do these words sound so tacky? Swish! It was also at this moment. In the void ahead, an old figure appeared. The old man had white hair and wrinkles on his face, but looking at Qin Feiyong, White-Eyed Wolf, and Mermaid Princess standing in front of him, his face was full of joy. Uncle Yuan! Qin Feiyong shouted and immediately pulled Mermaid Princess and ran over quickly. White-Eyed Wolf did the same. He pulled Fire Dance and quickly ran to Uncle Yuan. Qin Li and the others naturally didn't dare to neglect and quickly stepped forward to greet. Uncle Yuan, he is the old man who has been taking care of old Qin and Brother Wolf? Frenzy muttered. It should be. Zhuo Shaoxian nodded. Having been with Qin Feiyong for so many years, they had long known the existence of this old man. The two also walked over quickly. I'm not dreaming, right? Is it really you guys? Looking at Qin Feiyong, White-Eyed Wolf, and Mermaid Princess, Uncle Yuan's eyes were filled with tears. It's us. Look, we even brought back our wife. White-eyed Wolf bared his teeth and turned to look at Fire Dance, saying, Sister Fong, this is the Uncle Yuan we often talk about. Hello, Uncle Yuan. Fire Dance bowed. Good, good, good. Uncle Yuan looked at Fire Dance and nodded, saying, What a good girl. You little wolf. You must have done something good in your previous life. Otherwise, how could you find such a good wife? Uncle Yuan, you are a little biased. I'm not bad either, okay? White-eyed Wolf felt wronged. Yes, yes, yes. They are all good children. Qin Yuan nodded and kept wiping his tears, saying with a smile, Don't laugh at me. When one is old, one is useless. I can't control my eyes. Qin Feiyang, White-eyed Wolf, and Mermaid Princess looked at this scene and couldn't help but feel sour in their hearts. This was the person who truly cared and cared about them. I'm sorry for making you worry. Qin Feiyang and White-eyed Wolf knelt in front of the old man. Ice Dragon wasn't qualified to make them kneel. Small Beast wasn't qualified to make them kneel, but this old man was definitely qualified. I really didn't expect Brother Wolf to have such an honest side. It seems like this old man is really good to them. Lunatic whispered. It was really rare to see White-eyed Wolf being so honest and obedient. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't dare to believe it. Get up, get up. Wait until I'm dead, then you guys can slowly kneel. Uncle Yuan leaned over and helped the two up. Uncle Yuan, what are you talking about? Qin Feiyang was dissatisfied. Yeah, what death? How inauspicious. You must be as old as the heavens. White-eyed Wolf also spoke. Yes, yes, yes. As old as the heavens. Uncle Yuan nodded. He grabbed the two's hands and looked them up and down, left and right. His face was filled with love. Don't worry. We're the real deal, not fakes. White-eyed Wolf bared his teeth. Look at what you're saying. As if I'm doubting you. Uncle Yuan glared at White-eyed Wolf and said with a smile, Uncle Yuan just wants to take a good look at you. Have you changed in these years? Of course. You're even more handsome than before. White-eyed Wolf laughed. Uft. Uncle Yuan was amused. This little bastard was really the same as before. Uncle Yuan, let me introduce you. Qin Feiyang waved at Lunatic and Zhuo Shaoxian. The two held hands and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. Uncle Yuan, this is senior brother Lunatic, a good brother who has gone through life and death with him. He's from the ancient world. The one beside him is his wife, but she's not married yet. She's from the Sky Cloud realm. Qin Feiyang smiled. She's just not married yet. Everything else has been done. White-eyed Wolf added. Hearing this, Mermaid Princess and Fire Dance couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh. Zhuo Shaoxian lowered her head shyly. Lunatic couldn't help but roll his eyes. He looked at White-eyed Wolf and said, We don't know if you and Fire Dance are married or not. Don't get pregnant before marriage. Hearing this, Fire Dance's face couldn't help but twitch. He really dared to say anything. Greetings, Uncle Yuan. Lunatic bowed to Uncle Yuan and said with a smile, I've often heard them talk about you. I've long wanted to come and see you. Now that I see you, I feel very close. You're quite sweet. Qin Yuan chuckled and looked at Lunatic and Zhuo Shaoxian, saying, Welcome to Great Qin. We're a small place here, don't mind. His face was full of affection. Lunatic and Zhuo Shaoxian immediately felt a sense of warmth, as if he was their own grandfather. What are you saying? It's the same no matter where it is. Besides, I'm brothers with Old Qin and Brother Wolf. Their hometown is also my hometown. Lunatic waved his hand. Hearing this, Qin Yuan's face was full of smiles. He looked at Qin Feiyang and White-eyed Wolf and said with a smile, You've made a good friend. Isn't this what you always taught us? It's not about the number of friends. It's about the understanding. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes, it's useless no matter how many friends you have. In one's life, it's enough to have a few true friends. Qin Yuan nodded. Don't worry about that. Little lunatic is definitely a true friend. Even if you ask him to die, he won't bat an eye. White-eyed Wolf chuckled. Why don't you die? Lunatic's face was dark. This bastard was really not a good person. Uncle Yuan looked at this scene, and his smile became even brighter. Suddenly, he patted his head and looked at them. Look at my brain, the older I get, the less bright I get. It's not easy for you to come back. How can you keep chatting with an old man like me? Hurry up and go to the imperial capital to see your family. You're also our family. Come with us. I have a lot of things to say to you. Qin Feiyong smiled. Okay. Qin Yuan nodded. Uncle Yuan, you're indeed a little biased. We've been standing here for so long, but you didn't say a word to us. You only have Big Brother in your eyes. Qin Yi said with some jealousy. Huh. Qin Yuan was slightly stunned. Looking at Qin Li and the others, he shook his head and smiled. Sorry, I was too excited. Don't blame Uncle Yuan. He definitely didn't mean to be biased. No, don't pay attention to this kid. He likes to make his presence known, Qin Li said. I didn't. Qin Yi quickly denied. What kind of person are you? Don't we know? Qin Li despised. Ha! Qin Yi laughed dryly. Qin Feiyong also looked at Qin Yi with a strange expression. You kid also learned how to compete for favor. Cough, cough. Qin Yi coughed dryly, looking quite embarrassed. Chapter 40, 370. Kid, what ability do you have to compete with us for favor? Since we were young, we have been with Uncle Yuan. He treats us like his own grandchildren. The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Yi with disdain. Uncle Yuan also watched us grow up, and Uncle Yuan also treats us like his own grandchildren. If you don't believe me, you can ask Uncle Yuan now. Qin Yi bared his teeth. The corners of the white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. This level of shamelessness was almost on par with him. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He still liked these brothers and sisters very much, because these little guys were very capable. Take their performance in the ancient world as an example. If it were others, they would definitely use his name as a big brother to abuse their power in the ancient world. But these little guys didn't. If he hadn't returned this time, no one would have known that the 7 of them were his biological brothers and sisters. Moreover, when Qin Yi and Qin Xian were fighting, they had displayed outstanding battle experience and awareness. This showed that although they were talented, they were also constantly tempering themselves in private without any pride or complacency. The most important thing was, they were very united. This was what Qin Feiyong wanted to see the most. They didn't want glory and wealth, they only wanted family harmony. So, if they were to score these brothers and sisters, they could be rated at 99 points. Let's go! Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and opened a space-time passage. He didn't know why, but he was a little nervous when he was about to meet the family he cared about the most. This feeling was like a new daughter-in-law entering the house. Frenzy knew Qin Feiyong very well. At a glance, he could see the nervousness in Qin Feiyong's heart at the moment. He joked, Old Qin, your wife isn't nervous. What are you nervous about? When Qin Feiyong heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. He glanced at the mermaid princess next to him and pulled the mermaid princess's hand into the space-time passage. Sister Feng, when you see them later, you have to call them father and mother. The white-eyed wolf whispered. Why? Fire Dance looked at him suspiciously. Because in my eyes they're my father and mother. The white-eyed wolf said, All right. Fire Dance nodded. Pavilion of Autumn Rain. This was the palace that the emperor had specially built for Lu Qiu. The last time Qin Feiyong came back, this place already existed. Although it was a bedroom, there was no magnificent palace here. There was only an ancient-looking attic located in the middle of the garden. In the surroundings, there were small bridges, flowing water, and verdant plants, emitting a tranquil and peaceful aura. There were many guards standing guard outside the courtyard of the house of Autumn Rain. Inside, there were also a few palace maids trimming the flower beds and branches. Suddenly, a faint sound came from the void above, and then it began to shake. It was like a small stone falling into a calm lake, causing circles of ripples. The palace maids and the guards outside heard the commotion and immediately looked up. Void distortion? What happened? They were all bewildered. The group of guards immediately drew their weapons and became vigilant. Very soon, a space-time tunnel appeared. However, these palace maids and guards had never seen a space-time tunnel before, let alone know the laws of space-time. Therefore, at this moment, they were all extremely nervous. Finally, a man and a woman walked out hand in hand. Looking at the man and woman, these palace maids and guards immediately had a trace of bewilderment on their faces. Why did it look like His Highness? Could it be that they were seeing things? The group of people rubbed their eyes in disbelief and looked at Qin Feiyang again. This, the young man standing in the sky, had not changed at all. Whether it was his height or appearance, he was exactly the same as the legendary His Highness. Moreover, the woman beside him also looked like the princess of the mermaid clan. Although her appearance had not changed, they still found it hard to believe what they were seeing. Lunatic Zhuo Xiaoxian, White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Dance, Uncle Yuan, Qin Li, and the others also walked out one after another. Lunatic, Zhuo Xiaoxian, Fire Dance, and White-Eyed Wolf were all unfamiliar to the palace maids and guards. This was because no one in the great Qin Empire had seen White-Eyed Wolf's human form before. However, these palace maids and guards recognized Uncle Yuan, Qin Li, and the others. Lord Guardian, His Highness Qin Li, Princess Wan, Princess Yin. The palace maids and guards looked at them one by one before finally looking at Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess. Their expressions gradually became excited, since Qin Yuan, the seven His Highness, and the princess were all here. The person in front of them must be the legendary His Highness. What are you looking at? Hurry up and welcome Big Brother. Qin Xian grinned. The group of palace maids and guards looked at each other and hurriedly knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "Welcome home, Your Highness." Rise. Qin Feiyang raised his hand and waved gently. A gentle force surged, and the group of people stood up uncontrollably. The group of people looked up and sized up Qin Feiyang. They still felt like they were dreaming. Where's Mother? Qin Yun glanced at the Autumn Rain Pavilion and asked suspiciously, because she didn't sense Lu Chuyu's aura in the Autumn Rain Pavilion, let alone the presence of the Emperor. Princess Yin, Emperor Xian took Her Highness out to play a few days ago. We don't know when they will return. A palace maid replied respectfully. As expected, Qin Yin smiled bitterly as if it was within her expectations. Emperor Xian? However, Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Yun suspiciously. What did this mean? Big brother, there's something you don't know. After father abdicated, second brother ascended the throne and called father Emperor Xian. Qin Yun explained. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Emperor Hong, Emperor Chen, and Emperor Xian. Now, their great Qin had 3 retired emperors. Since he retired, father seemed to have nothing to do. Every few days, he would take mother to play and live the life of an immortal couple. Just now, I didn't sense father and mother's aura, so I guess that they must have gone to play again. Qin Yin shook her head. Isn't that good? Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. In fact, he knew that father did this to make up for what he owed mother. Moreover, mother had given birth to so many children for the Qin clan over the years. Otherwise, the entire Qin clan would only have him and Qin Haoyan, the 2 only children. For a royal family like the Qin clan, the most important thing was undoubtedly the inheritance of the family. Therefore, if father didn't treat mother well, as a son he wouldn't agree. Qin Wan said, "Then where did the old couple go to play?" "I don't know. A group of palace maids and guards shook their heads. Qin Yuan couldn't help but smile bitterly. She turned to look at Qin Yuan and said, "It seems that I have to trouble you again." "Again? What do you mean?" White-eyed Wolf looked at Qin Yuan in puzzlement. When the old couple went out to play, in order to avoid being disturbed and spoiled, they would leave the image crystal in the imperial palace. So these years, when we came back to visit them, as long as we didn't see them, we would ask Uncle Yuan to help us find them. Qin Yuan explained. "Is that so? So focused?" White-eyed Wolf was stunned. "That's not right." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled faintly. "I think father must be hiding from your second brother. So he didn't bring the image crystal. Hiding from second brother." Qin Yin and the others were stunned. "Did you see that? It's still your big brother who understands your father better." Qin Yuan looked at Qin Li and the others and smiled hoarsely. "The reason why your father didn't bring the image crystal is mostly because of your second brother, Qin Haoyan. Why does he have to hide from second brother?" The seven were puzzled. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. "Because your second brother doesn't want to be the emperor of the Great Qin. Your father didn't withdraw, so he can only hide from him. Isn't the emperor good?" "Second brother, you really don't know how lucky you are." Qin Yi pouted. "Good, then you go. If you want to be the emperor, you can make history, because you are the only empress of the Great Qin." Qin Xian looked at her teasingly from the side. Qin Yi's expression froze, and she smiled embarrassedly. "Then forget it. The outside world is quite fun. You know it's fun too. Second brother definitely knows it too. Moreover, second brother's talent is better than ours. Even if he has been busy in the Great Qin, his cultivation is still higher than ours. If he goes out to explore, his achievements will definitely be higher than ours." At the mention of Qin Haojian, his face was full of admiration. Qin Yuan smiled and said, "So, you guys should feel lucky to have such responsible brothers. If it wasn't for them, would you be able to live so easily, so freely, and so carefree?" After speaking, he closed his eyes and looked for the mystic Tharch and Lu Qiu. Hearing Qin Yuan's words, Qin Li and the others looked at each other. Indeed, they were really lucky. Qin Feiyang, their eldest brother, walked at the front and opened a bright path for them, guiding them forward. It could be said that if it wasn't for Qin Feiyang leading them in front, who knew how many detours they would have to take? Second brother, Qin Haojian, stayed in the Great Qin and took on all the responsibilities, turning the Great Qin into a pure land so that they wouldn't have any worries. Sometimes, thinking about it, compared to the hardships of their eldest brother and second brother, they were really much more relaxed. For example, Qin Li. How much did he desire the throne in the past? He even formed a clique and wanted to usurp the throne. But now, looking at the hardworking Qin Haoyan, he felt some sympathy. Seriously, we have to find a chance to thank our eldest brother and second brother. The taciturn Qin Ji transmitted his voice to Qin Li and the others. Qin Li and the others nodded silently. "We found them." At this moment, Uncle Yuan opened his mouth and smiled, opening his eyes. "Where?" Qin Feiyang hurriedly asked. "They are playing in Yuzhou. Are you going to find them personally, or should I call them back?" Qin Yuan asked with a smile. Qin Feiyang said, "Or should we wait?" Madman suddenly interrupted Qin Feiyang and said, "Don't forget, we can only stay in the Great Qin for 2 days. It's a waste of time to run around. Also, I have a suggestion." "What suggestion?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Gather everyone together and go to the Black Tortoise World. The Black Tortoise World has a time array. 2 days is a full 10,000 years. 10,000 years is enough for us to gather." Madman said, "That's right. Why didn't I think of that?" Qin Feiyang slapped his head. Yesterday in the ancient world, he should have brought everyone to the Black Tortoise World. This way, Even if it was only one day, it would be a full 5,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. End of this chapter. Chapter 4371. The white-eyed wolf glanced at the madman and said unhappily, "Why did you only think of it now? Was your head kicked by a donkey yesterday in the ancient world?" Scram! The madman's face darkened. "If I didn't think of it now, I'm afraid you guys wouldn't have thought of it even after leaving the Great Cheen. You still have the face to say that my head was kicked by a donkey? Since that's the case, let's hurry up. You guys split up now and invite all the people we're familiar with." Qin Feiyang turned to look at Qin Li and the others and smiled. "Should we tell them that you guys are back?" Qin Xian smiled mischievously. "What do you think?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. "I think let's not tell them first. We'll give them a surprise later," Qin Xian said with a mischievous smile. "As long as you're happy." Qin Feiyang chuckled. Whoosh! Immediately after, the 7 of them split up and flew away. "You guys take care of His Highness. I'll go inform His Majesty." A guard instructed the palace maids and immediately rushed towards the throne room, because it was early morning. Qin Haoyan was in the morning court in the throne room. Throne room. The officials stood respectfully. On the dragon throne, Qin Haoyan was dressed in a dragon robe. He was serious and looked extremely dignified. An old official stepped forward and bowed. "Your Majesty, I heard from the spies that the reincarnation ocean has been a little unstable recently. Also, Yi Shu of the Forgotten Continent sent a message a few days ago saying that there are movements in the Endless Ocean." "The reincarnation ocean? The Endless Ocean?" Qin Haoyan muttered for a while and asked, "Could it be that the seals of Zhuge Shinfeng and the Chief Tower Master have loosened?" Zhuge Shinfeng was the eldest son of the first generation Zhuge Wuhou. The Chief Tower Master was young Master Hao's father. These 2 people were once Qin Feiyang's great enemies. But later, Qin Feiyang didn't kill them. Instead, he let Uncle Yuan seal their remnant souls in the reincarnation ocean and the Endless Ocean. He did this to help Qin Haoyan. In short, he treated the 2 of them as stepping stones on Qin Haoyan's path. Yes, their seals are already starting to loosen. If we don't reinforce the seal as soon as possible, I'm afraid they'll break free very soon. Those 2 people weren't good people back then, and they're incredibly powerful. Once they escape, Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent will once again descend into chaos. The group of old officials below were all deeply worried. Jiang Haotian looked at the group of old officials and said indifferently, "The current Great Qin is no longer the Great Qin of the past. Even if they manage to escape, they won't be able to do anything. Moreover, we would like to experience their strength. Your Majesty, this matter cannot be taken lightly." An old official called out, "AI, you worry too much. Do you know why Zhuge Shinfeng and the Chief Tower Master were sealed in the Sea of Reincarnation and the Endless Ocean by Yuan Bo? Because this was Big Brother's idea. Big Brother kept them alive because he wanted them to be my stepping stones. It's just that I was too young back then and didn't understand Big Brother's painstaking efforts." Qin Haotian sighed. "So it was His Highness Qin Feiyang's idea." The group of old officials muttered. "It's just that Big Brother didn't expect Great Qin to develop so quickly. Right now, Great Qin has no less than 10,000 false gods, a few thousand war gods, and many god lords and ultimate gods. Our cultivation has already reached the half-step undead realm. With Zhuge Shinfeng and the Chief Tower Master's cultivation, even if they manage to escape, what kind of storm can they cause in the current Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent?" Qin Haotian said domineeringly, not putting them in his eyes at all. "That's true. However, they're still young, Master Hao. According to our spies, young Master Hao's cultivation has already reached the 9 heavens realm." Someone else said, Young Master How was able to reach the Nine Heavens realm because Big Brother helped him open the door of potential. He's a smart person. If he dares to oppose Great Qin, only death awaits him. As for Zhuge Shinfeng and the Chief Tower Master, if they really want to cause trouble, then let Great Qin's younger generation play with them, because right now they're only fit to be the stepping stones of those younger generation. Qin Haotian said calmly. All right. The group of old officials nodded. Although the current emperor was young, whether it was in terms of courage or methods, he was much stronger than the previous emperor. Perhaps this was the confidence that came with strength. Qin Haotian, the current emperor, was already publicly known as the strongest person in Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent. Even Emperor Hong, Emperor Chen, and Emperor Xian were inferior to him. Your Majesty! At this moment, accompanied by a hurried cry, a guard ran into the palace. Impudent! We're in the middle of the morning court, and a guard like you is shouting and running in. What are you doing? Back down! One of the officials reprimanded. The guard quivered and hurriedly knelt on the ground, looking at Qin Haotian and saying, Your Majesty, please forgive me. It's fine. Qin Haotian waved his hand and asked, Why are you in such a hurry? Is something the matter? Yes. The guard nodded. Looking at the officials on both sides, he said hesitantly, Your Majesty, may I speak closer? Come up. Qin Haotian waved his hand. This was because he had already recognized that this person was a guard from the Autumn Rain Pavilion. For a guard from the Autumn Rain Pavilion to barge into the throne room, there must be something important. The guard got up and quickly ran to Qin Haotian's ear, whispering a few words. What? Qin Haotian suddenly stood up and looked at the guard, asking, Really? What is it? Your Majesty has such a big reaction. The officials were surprised. It's absolutely true. The guard nodded at Qin Haotian. Qin Haotian clenched his fists and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He looked at the officials and said, Today's morning court will end here. You may all disperse. With that, he hurriedly left. The guard also hurriedly followed. What's going on? The officials looked at each other in bewilderment. Autumn Rain Pavilion. Qin Feiyang and the others sat in the pavilion. After informing the Emperor Xian and his wife, Qin Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, What's the 2 days you mentioned? It means that we can only stay in the Great Qin Empire for 2 days. Qin Feiyang sighed. Why? Qin Yuan frowned. He thought that Qin Feiyang wouldn't leave again after coming back this time. This matter. Qin Feiyang was about to speak. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure tore through the air like a bolt of lightning. They looked up. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and the mermaid princess immediately smiled. The person who came was Qin Haotian. Whoosh! Qin Haotian landed in front of the courtyard. Greetings, Your Majesty. The guard standing guard outside bowed and saluted. However, Qin Haotian acted as if he didn't hear anything. He walked straight into the courtyard and glanced around. When he saw Qin Feiyang and the others in the pavilion, a trace of joy immediately crept onto his face. He then quickly walked towards the pavilion. Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess looked at each other and also stood up to welcome him. The three of them walked together and looked at each other. Qin Haotian looked at this familiar face. Although he tried very hard to control his emotions, he could not hide it. He bowed and said, Greetings, big brother. Greetings, sister-in-law. The mermaid princess nodded with a smile. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Haotian for a while and said with a smile, Not bad. You're wearing a dragon robe. Very handsome and awe-inspiring. Hearing this, the corner of Qin Haotian's mouth twitched. He had wanted to take off this dragon god for a long time, but no one gave him the chance. Come, let me introduce you to a few friends. Qin Feiyang pulled Qin Haotian into the pavilion. Uncle Yuan. Qin Haotian first bowed to Qin Yuan. Qin Yuan was not only someone Qin Feiyang respected, but also someone he respected. I didn't disturb you from handling state affairs, did I? Qin Yuan asked with a smile. It's just a small matter. It's not important. Qin Haoyan hurriedly waved his hand. That's good. Qin Yuan nodded with a smile. Madman looked at Qin Haoyan for a while, then turned to Qin Feiyang and asked, This kid is your brother Qin Haoyan, who doesn't want to be the emperor. See, the fact that you don't want to be the emperor has already spread throughout the world. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Haoyan and teased. Heard of it? Qin Haoyan smiled bitterly. Introduce him. He is Madman Mo, my close brother. You can call him Big Brother Madman. Qin Feiyang pointed at Madman and smiled. How can that be? I'm the emperor now. It's so embarrassing to let the emperor call me Big Brother. Madman grimaced. Big Brother Madman, can you stop laughing at me? Qin Haoyan's face was full of bitterness. If there was a suitable person, he would want to abdicate right now. Qin Feiyang pointed at Zhuo Shaoxian and said with a smile. Sitting next to him is his fiancée, Zhuo Shaoxian. You have to call her sister-in-law. Hello, sister-in-law. Qin Haoyan immediately bowed to Zhuo Shaoxian. Hello. Zhuo Shaoxian smiled gently. Qin Feiyang pointed at Fire Dance and said with a smile, And this, her name is Fire Dance. She has a big background. She's a divine beast phoenix and the princess of the Feng people. You have to call her sister-in-law. Phoenix. Not to mention Qin Haoyan. Even Uncle Yuan was shocked. You really know how to joke. No matter how big my background is, it's not as big as yours. Fire Dance looked at Qin Feiyang helplessly, then looked at Qin Haoyan and said with a smile, I've heard about you a long time ago. Now that I see it, you are indeed a responsible person. Thank you for the compliment, sister-in-law. Qin Haoyan scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed for a moment. But then, he was stunned and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously, asking, Why do you call her sister-in-law? Could it be that you— Stop. Stop your imagination. Qin Feiyang hurriedly spoke and interrupted Qin Haoyan, because Qin Haoyan definitely wanted to ask if Fire Dance was his woman. Qin Haoyan was stunned and became more and more suspicious. I say, you brat, why are you so blind? Can't you see that I'm sitting here? The white-eyed wolf glared at Qin Haoyan with dissatisfaction. Huh. Qin Haoyan looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. Who is this? I'm your brother wolf. The white-eyed wolf said angrily. Brother wolf? Qin Haoyan was stunned and didn't react for a moment. He asked, Which brother wolf? The white-eyed wolf's veins suddenly bulged and he shouted, Other than me, which brother wolf do you have? Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang and Madman couldn't help but want to laugh, saying, You might as well restore your true form, so that when everyone comes later, you don't have to introduce them one by one. End of chapter. Chapter 4372. Scram! The white-eyed wolf's face darkened as he glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang and Qin Haoyan. Then he looked at Qin Haoyan and said with a straight face, I'll give you 3 breaths of time to think. If you can't remember, I'll beat you up. Huh. Qin Haoyan scratched his head. Suddenly, his gaze trembled as he looked at the white-eyed wolf in shock. The white-eyed wolf looked at him expectantly. Qin Haoyan asked, Are you that shameless white-eyed wolf? Ugh. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. The white-eyed wolf also froze there. He actually called him shameless? He even directly said that he was the white-eyed wolf. F***CK, you brat, are you courting death? Immediately, he was enraged and kicked him. Qin Haoyan was caught off guard. He staggered and sat on the ground, grimacing in pain. Hey, no matter what others say, he's still an emperor. You have to give the emperor some face. Qin Feiyang stared at the white-eyed wolf. So what if he's an emperor? Not to mention an emperor. Even if he becomes a ruler in my eyes, he will always be a little brother. The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly, then stretched out his hand in front of Qin Haoyan and said disdainfully, "Falling with a kick, a dignified man is so weak. Don't you think it's embarrassing?" Qin Haoyan was about to cry. You were so sudden. No one would be able to react in time. Then he grabbed the white-eyed wolf's hand. The white-eyed wolf took advantage of the situation, and Qin Haoyan stood up. He patted the dust off his dragon robe and asked, "Are you really that white-eyed?" Before he could say anything, the white-eyed wolf glared at him. Qin Haoyan shrunk his neck and hurriedly changed his words. "Are you really Brother Wolf?" "That's more like it." The white-eyed wolf smiled in satisfaction and nodded. "Yes, it's your Brother Wolf." "How is it? Are you not handsome?" Cough, cough. Qin Haoyan choked. How old was this old antique? How could he compare himself with others all day? Could he have some shame? Do you have any objections to this question? The white-eyed wolf stared at him with ill intentions. No, no. Too handsome. How can I compare with you? There's no comparison at all. Qin Haoyan smiled flatteringly. Ha ha, young man, you have a future. The white-eyed wolf smiled and patted Qin Haoyan's shoulder. He was very satisfied with this answer. Qin Haoyan wiped the cold snort from his forehead. Couldn't tell that he was confess. Glancing at Huo Wu, Qin Haoyan looked at the ingrate and asked, "So, this sister-in-law is Brother Wolf's wife?" "I just praised you for having a bright future. Why are you saying such silly things again? Other than your Brother Wolf, who else has such great charm?" The ingrate glared at him and said proudly, Haoyan, repeatedly wolf. He. He. No, he big brother, let's talk in private. Qin Haoyan grabbed Qin Feiyang. He didn't even give Qin Feiyang a chance to ask and quickly walked out of the pavilion to a corner. What is he going to do? The white-eyed wolf and the others looked at Qin Haoyan suspiciously. Qin Yuan looked at this scene and just smiled faintly. He seemed to know Qin Haoyan's purpose. Soon, Qin Haoyan dragged Qin Feiyang to the front of a rockery and finally stopped. What? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Big brother. Qin Haoyan rubbed his hands. He didn't have the imposing and domineering aura he had in the throne room. He was like a little brother who was trying to please his big brother. He smiled and said, "This time you won't leave again, right?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. His eyes suddenly became playful. He nodded and said, "Yes, I won't leave." He also knew what Qin Haoyan wanted to do. Qin Haoyan was overjoyed when he heard this. He chuckled and said, "If you don't leave, then I'll return the throne to you." "Return it to me?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He frowned and said, "Can this still be returned?" "The throne of the great Qin should have been yours. Moreover, in the eyes of father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, you are the most suitable candidate. I'm just a substitute. In the past, I could help you when you were outside, but now that you're back, I must return this throne to you." Qin Haoyan smiled. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He said speechlessly, "So you've always thought that you were helping me by being the emperor? Otherwise, you know that I have no interest in being the emperor at all. If it wasn't for that irresponsible father who set a trap for me and forced me to be the emperor, I would still be a free man." Qin Haoyan looked helpless. Qin Feiyang smiled. He had heard about this from Long Chen long ago. When Long Chen sent Ji Tianyue to the Great Qin last time, he had already understood the situation. It was indeed their father who set a trap for Qin Haoyan, forcing him to ascend the throne. Take it as me begging you. Look at me. I've been in the Great Qin for so many years and haven't gone out. Looking at the outside world, even I feel like a frog at the bottom of a well. Qin Haoyan grabbed Qin Feiyang's arm, his face full of pleading. "I'm afraid not. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why? Didn't you say you wouldn't leave? Anyway, you have nothing to do. Why don't you give it a try? If it doesn't work, you can return it to me. Qin Haotian said. Qin Feiyang was really amused. The emperor of a country could give it a try? He felt that, in this kid's eyes, the supreme imperial power was worthless. Big brother, my Qin Dage, Qin Haotian began to act coquettishly. Even he himself felt that it was a little mushy, but in order to fight for freedom, he endured it. Stop shaking. My hand is about to be broken by you. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Then promise me. Qin Haotian chuckled. Qin Feiyang looked at his silly brother in front of him, shook his head, and sighed. I can't promise you. Seeing this, Qin Haotian's expression froze, and he said unhappily, Then give me a reason. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Uncle Yuan, who was sitting in the pavilion, and sighed. I can tell you these things, but you can't tell Uncle Yuan and Mother. Hearing this, Qin Haotian's heart couldn't help but tremble, because he saw the worry on Qin Feiyang's face that couldn't be dispelled. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at the flowing water on the rockery and sighed. To tell you the truth, I came back to visit you this time because I don't want to leave any regrets. What do you mean? Qin Haotian's pupils constricted. Why did it sound like these were his last words? That's right. You can take what I'm about to say as my last words to you. The Sky Cloud Realm is currently facing a calamity. If this calamity can't be quelled, it will affect all the continents. You heard right, it's all the continents that we know. The Sky Cloud Realm, the Ancient Realm, the Underworld King's Hell, the first and second levels of the Divine Ruins, including our Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent. Qin Feiyang said. What? Qin Haotian's gaze trembled. It was actually so serious. You should know that Dong Xingyang has opened the Eye of Destiny. He should have already used the Eye of Destiny to see everyone's fate. Before coming back, he said something, telling us to go back to the Great Qin to take a look and not leave any regrets. You're a smart person, so it shouldn't be hard for you to understand the meaning of these words, right? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Qin Haotian nodded. Of course, he understood the meaning of these words. At that time, it was possible that they wouldn't be able to come back alive, and they wouldn't have the chance to see their families. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Now you know why I can't promise you, right? I know, but you have more important things to do. Qin Haotian nodded. So, I'll leave the Great Qin to you in the future. I'll also leave great-grandpa, grandpa, father, mother, and those cute little brothers and sisters to you to take care of. You have a great responsibility, so you must be strong. Qin Feiyang patted Qin Haotian's shoulder and smiled. Since it's like this, I definitely won't shirk my responsibility. Qin Haotian bitterly laughed, then looked at Qin Feiyang seriously and said, But you have to promise me that no matter what danger we face, you have to do everything you can to survive. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a faint smile, Aren't you going to ask what kind of powerful enemy we're facing right now? What's the point of asking? It's not like I can help. Instead, when the time comes, I'll have to worry about you all day long. Do I have nothing better to do? Qin Haotian coldly snorted. Ha! Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. He's laughing. Looks like they're not going to duel. When the white-eyed wolf heard Qin Feiyang's laughter, he was slightly surprised. Then he turned to look at Qin Feiyang and Qin Haotian standing in front of the fake mountain and chuckled. Duel? Qin Yuan was slightly surprised, then he shook his head and said with a smile, Qin Haotian has already let it go. How could he still want to duel with his big brother? I have to admit that in terms of breadth of mind and responsibility, this kid is very similar to little Qin Zi. They're really brothers. Moreover, this kid handles state affairs here every day, and his cultivation is actually higher than Qin Li and the others. If he were to focus on cultivation, he would probably break through to the sovereign realm. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Sovereign realm? Qin Yuan was slightly surprised. The white-eyed wolf said, "The sovereign realm is the realm above the imperishable realm. This old man knows. Yizhong already told this old man about it when he came here. This old man is just wondering what realm you've broken through to now." Qin Yuan's eyes were filled with curiosity. "Take a guess." The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Yuan mysteriously. "I can't guess. In any case, this old man can't see through your cultivation." Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled. "Then you should cooperate and pretend to guess." The white-eyed wolf was helpless. He was already trying to act cool. But in the end, this old man simply said that he couldn't guess. Wasn't this equivalent to hugging a beautiful lady and preparing to go into battle? But in the end, the lady suddenly said lightly that her relatives were here? How boring. "Kid, you're always so sneaky. This old man won't fall for it." Qin Yuan chuckled. The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. As expected, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. Qin Yuan could tell at a glance what he wanted to do. He didn't give him a chance to act cool at all. Chapter 43-73. Whoosh! At this moment, accompanied by the sound of air being torn apart, a group of people flashed over like lightning. Qin Yuan looked up and a smile appeared on his face. Who are these people? But Madman, Zhuo Shaoxian, Fire Dance, and Li Feng were all confused. The old man in the lead is Emperor Hong, Qin Baishan's son. The one on the right of Emperor Hong is Emperor Chen, Little Qin Zi's grandfather. The one on the left is Sun Jian, Little Qin Zi's subordinate. He is now in charge of guarding the Great Qin. The other old men are also the guardians of the Great Qin. Look, the third old man in the second row is called Elder Qin. The second one is Qin Sheng. He used to take care of us. White-eyed Wolf introduced. The others nodded. These people's cultivation was not low. They were almost all in the Nine Heavens realm. "Greetings, great-grandpa." The mermaid princess went up and bowed. The group of people looked at the mermaid princess with excited expressions. Good, good, good. Look at you, you've lost weight. Tell great-grandpa, did that kid bully you? Emperor Hong looked at the mermaid princess with tears in his eyes. Ah, the mermaid princess was stunned and quickly shook her head. No, no, that's right. With you old men supporting him, it's good enough that he doesn't bully me. How dare I bully him? Qin Feiyang's voice sounded as he led Qin Haoyan over. Brat, you still know to come back? Emperor Hong and Emperor Qin immediately flew over. Without saying a word, they raised their hands and patted Qin Feiyang's head. Aren't you too ruthless? Am I your grandson? Qin Feiyang touched his forehead, feeling wronged. That's it. Emperor Chen's mouth twitched. You're not our grandson. We picked you up from the river. Ah. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Emperor Chen curled his lips and said, But I didn't expect that the bastard I picked up would be so promising. Hearing this, the others could not help but laugh. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but shake his head with a wry smile. He bowed and said, Grandson greets grandfather and great-grandfather. All right. The two old men nodded, their faces full of affection. How many days and nights of worry. How many days and nights of hope. Finally, this brat came back. Greetings, old man Qin. Greetings, seniors. Qin Feiyang stepped forward again and saluted old Qin and the others. It's good that you're back. The few of them nodded and smiled, their eyes a little moist. Their feelings for Qin Feiyang were no less than Emperor Hong and Emperor Chen. Of course, Qin Feiyang also had a very special feeling for these people, especially old Qin. He was completely devoted to Great Qin, and no one was more reliable than him. Young master. Sun Jian bowed and saluted. Qin Feiyang looked at Sun Jian for a moment and said with a smile, Not bad. You have reached the peak of the ninth heaven state. It seems that you have not been idle these years. You have given such a heavy responsibility to me. How could I dare to be idle? Sun Jian scratched his head. Although he was not a member of the Qin clan, he had absolute power in Great Qin. This was the task that Qin Feiyang had given him. Whoever dared to harm Great Qin, whoever dared to bully the people from the princes and princesses to the civil and military officials, would be killed without mercy. So, even Qin Li's group of 7 had to respectfully call him Uncle Jian. Good. Qin Feiyang patted Sun Jian on the shoulder. Sure enough, he hadn't misjudged him. This was definitely a trustworthy person. Just now, Qin Yi rushed to us and told us that you were back. We didn't believe it and thought that he was joking with us. But I didn't expect that it was true. Now that you are back, Great Qin will be safe. By the way, where is that wolf cub? Is he too shy to show himself? This is not like him. Qin Xing glanced at the group of people and chuckled. Hey, I am standing right here. Don't lie through your teeth. The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Huh. Everyone looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. He is the white-eyed wolf. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Sure enough, he had to introduce him to everyone. You are the white-eyed wolf. What is going on? You turned into a human. Am I dreaming? Old Man Qin and the others looked at each other in disbelief. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. What was so strange about him turning into a human? Old Man Qin and the others could not be blamed. This was all the white-eyed wolf's fault. In the past, the white-eyed wolf was very repulsed by the idea of turning into a human. The mermaid princess smiled and said, Old Man Qin, it is different now. He is in love, so he pays more attention to his image. In love? Qin Sheng and the others were stunned. They quickly looked at the white-eyed wolf and asked, Which family's girl is so unlucky to be entangled by you? Can you still talk? Am I so unbearable? The white-eyed wolf glared at them, gnashing his teeth. Ha! Qin Yuan, Emperor Hong, Emperor Qin, Qin Feiyang and the others could not help but laugh. Madman kicked the white-eyed wolf's heel and said jokingly, Brother Wolf, how much of a jerk were you in Great Qin? Get lost. The white-eyed wolf glared at Madman angrily, looked at Old Man Qin and the others and said proudly, You old guys are obviously envious of me. Let me introduce. This is my family's Sister Feng. She is a national beauty, peerless talent, and educated. Most importantly, she is the eldest princess of the Sky, Cloud, Realms, Phoenix clan. Being introduced by the white-eyed wolf, Fire Dance's face could not help but blush. Don't talk about other people's strengths. It was embarrassing. She lowered her head and said, Fire Dance greets great-grandfather, grandfather, and several seniors. The eldest princess of the Phoenix clan. Emperor Hong and the others looked at each other. Although they did not know how powerful the Feng people of the Sky Cloud realm were, when they heard the word Phoenix, it was not difficult to imagine the family background of this little girl. This wolf cub was really lucky. He actually found such a good woman. Good. Coming to Great Qin is like returning to your own home. Don't stand on ceremony. Also, if this wolf cub bullies you, tell us, we will teach him a lesson for you. Emperor Hong and Emperor Qin said with a kind smile, Thank you, great-grandfather. Thank you, grandfather. A warm current flowed in Fire Dance's heart. These were not her biological great-grandfather and grandfather, but the two old men in front of her felt better than her biological grandfather. Suddenly, she was a little envious of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, especially the white-eyed wolf. He clearly had no blood relationship with the Qin clan, but these old men of the Qin clan cared about him as much as their own children. Sit down and talk, Qin Yuan said with a smile. Yes, sit down and talk. Emperor Hong and Emperor Qin nodded. Just as they sat down, before they could introduce Madman Li Feng and Zhuo Shaoxian, a teleportation door opened. Immediately after, a couple hurriedly ran out. It was Emperor Xian and Shangguan Qiu. Qin Yuan, what happened? The couple was burning with anxiety. As soon as they came out, Emperor Xian roared. Come down! Uncle Yuan's voice came from the pavilion. The couple was stunned. They looked down at the pavilion, but because the pavilion was covered with glazed tiles, they couldn't see the situation inside, so they quickly landed outside the pavilion. This time, the two of them were stunned. Wasn't the young man sitting next to Emperor Hong and Emperor Qin that kid? Father, mother. Qin Feiyang walked over with the mermaid princess and knelt in front of them. The couple was stunned and couldn't recover for a long time. Previously, Qin Yuan contacted them and told them that something big happened in the imperial capital and asked them to come back immediately. But they didn't expect that when they rushed back, they would see their son and daughter-in-law, who they missed day and night, standing in front of them. This surprise is not bad, right? Qin Yuan looked at the couple and laughed. Surprise? The two were stunned. Then they forced a smile and said, You're too good at joking. You scared us so much. Who told you to run around all day? Qin Haotian pursed his lips. Brat, you're not convinced? Emperor Xian glared at Qin Haotian. I'm just not convinced. Didn't you always teach us that we can't be idle and not do proper work? Now, you've set a good example for us. Qin Haotian grumbled. This is what I deserve because I've been busy all my life, Emperor Xian said. Qin Haotian said helplessly, Okay, I can't win against you. Big brother and sister-in-law are still kneeling. Do you want them to keep kneeling like this? The couple shuddered and quickly helped Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess up. They were so angry with Qin Haotian that they almost forgot. When did you come back? Have you been well all these years? The one who loved their children the most in the world was none other than an old mother, because there was a saying that a mother's love was the greatest. We're all good. Qin Feiyang nodded. Looking at his mother now, he was really happy from the bottom of his heart, because his mother now had no worries, and was younger and more beautiful than before. And this old father, he looked like he was in his 30s. Where's the wolf cub? And the previous emperor and the others, why don't I see them? Emperor Xian asked. It's my turn. The white-eyed wolf grinned and pulled fire dance to the front of the couple. And Emperor Xian and Lu Qiu looked at the two suspiciously. Who were these two little guys? Guess. Emperor Hong chuckled. The couple looked at Emperor Hong, then looked at Emperor Chan and the others, and found that they were all looking at them with a smile that was not a smile. This made the two even more confused. The two sized up the white-eyed wolf and fire dance. Suddenly, Lu Qiu's eyes flashed with joy and asked, You're the wolf cub? Ah, mother, how did you know? Qin Feiyang was stunned. One had to know the Yi Zhong, Hui, Uncle Yuan, Emperor Hong, Emperor Chan, Old Qin, and the others. None of them could recognize the white-eyed wolf. But now his mother recognized the white-eyed wolf's identity so quickly. This surprised the white-eyed wolf himself. Because of this kid's eyes, no matter how his face changes, his eyes will never change. It's this kid. Lu Qiu looked at the white-eyed wolf and smiled. End of this chapter. Chapter 43-74. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf was very touched. He burrowed into Lu Qiu's arms and smiled. You are really closer to me than my own mother. Silly child, do you still think of yourself as an outsider? You have been my child for a long time. Lu Qiu smiled lovingly. Shameless, Qin Feiyang and Qin Haotian glared at the white-eyed wolf unhappily. He even wanted to fight with them for their mother. This was too much. The mystic Tharch sized up the white-eyed wolf, nodded, and smiled. Not bad, not bad. Your human form looks a little like your father when I was young. Ah. Everyone was stunned. Frenzy. And Li Feng looked at the mystic Tharch strangely. Qin Feiyang's old father was actually such a narcissistic person? It seemed like the white-eyed wolf was the mystic Tharka's biological son. This was because the white-eyed wolf had such a personality as well. Lu Qiu couldn't help but glare at the mystic Tharch. He was already so old, and yet he was still so shameless. Wouldn't he be a joke? Ha! The mystic Tharch laughed dryly and looked at Fire Dance curiously. Then who is this lass? The white-eyed wolf quickly grabbed Fire Dance's hand and grinned. She is your daughter-in-law. Ah, you already found a wife. Little brat, this is wrong of you. Parents' orders and matchmakers' words. This is such a big matter. Why didn't you inform us first? The mystic Tharch looked at the white-eyed wolf unhappily. We are not married yet. The white-eyed wolf laughed dryly. No. Then what is wrong with you? She is following you, and you don't even want to give her a status? Do you believe that I will teach you a lesson? The mystic Tharka's face was filled with anger. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. You said it both when we are married and when we are not. Why is it so difficult? Let me tell you, kid. The mystic tortoise Tharch glared at the white-eyed wolf and then looked at Qin Feiyang and Qin Haoyan. And you too. Please tell me. Qin Feiyang and Qin Haoyan listened respectfully. The mystic Tharch said, a man's life must be devoted and focused. You must never let down the woman who loves you. TSK, how can you say that out loud? Who was the one who had a harem in the past? The white-eyed wolf pouted. What did you say? The mystic Tharch glared at the white-eyed wolf. Nothing, nothing. You are right. Your words are priceless advice. You are our role model. You have thousands of concubines, but you only favor one. We all have to learn from you. The white-eyed wolf smiled obsequiously. That's more like it. The mystic Tharch laughed as he looked at Jiang meaningfully. It was as if he was telling the white-eyed wolf that he was sensible. But soon after, his expression froze. Thousands of concubines, but only one? Why did these words sound a little off? At this moment, more teleportation gates appeared one after another. Everyone raised their heads to look. He saw the 4 old men rushing back with a group of young people. Eldest grandpa, second grandpa, Uncle Hey, little cousin, little Hong, Lu Xiaojia, Lu Xiaofei, Qin Feiyang murmured. Looking at these familiar faces, not only Qin Feiyang, but even the white-eyed wolf couldn't contain his excitement. Kid, didn't you say something big happened? What's going on? Lu Zhang looked at the peaceful autumn rain inn and turned to look at Qin Xian suspiciously. Qin Xian held back his laughter and pointed at the pavilion below. The group looked down at the pavilion. Why were there so many familiar auras? Among them, there was one aura that was particularly familiar. It seemed like Lu Zhang and Lu Hong looked at each other. They hurriedly rushed to the front of the pavilion and looked inside. When they saw Qin Feiyang, the two of them were stupefied. He was back? Was this the big thing that Qin Xian was talking about? Eldest grandpa and the others also landed in front of the pavilion. When they saw Qin Feiyang standing inside, they were also stunned. It's this kid? Is it because we miss this kid too much that our eyes are playing tricks on us? Their faces were filled with disbelief. Who dares to offend our great Qin? Suddenly, another violent roar sounded, and killing intent soared into the sky. Following closely, one figure after another descended from the sky. Without even looking, Qin Feiyang knew who these people were from the aura they were emitting. Ling Yunfei, Zhao Shuang'er, Fatso, Lian Luo Qingzhu, Ren Wushuang. There were also Old Master Ren, Yan Nanshan, Jiang Jingyi, Luo Qianxue, Lu Yan, and so on. There were also the juniors below. For example, Fatso and Li Yan's child Situ Feiyong, Ling Yunfei and Zhao Shuanger's daughter Ling Xiaoyan. When Qin Feiyong came back and saw this little girl last time, she was still a little girl with a ponytail. At that time, Qin Feiyong even gave her the soul-calming pearl. After all these years, this little girl had become a slender and elegant young lady. She was wearing a tight suit and her hair was tied up, looking valiant and formidable. As for Situ Feiyong, he was already a young man back then. Now he looked more mature and steady. In short, they were all familiar faces. However, at this moment, this group of people was full of killing intent. Qin Ji, next to them, looked at this group of people, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Wasn't it a little inappropriate to ignore everyone like this? That's right. It was Qin Ji who went to look for them. Hey, littling, damn fatso, how long has it been since we last met? You're already so impressive? White-eyed Wolf walked out of the pavilion, looked up at Ling Yunfei and Fatso and joked. Ling Yunfei and Fatso were stunned and looked at White-eyed Wolf in surprise. Little Ling? Damn Fatso. In this world, the only person who would call them that seemed to be White-eyed Wolf's figure involuntarily appeared in their minds. Wait. Immediately after, their eyes trembled and looked at the pavilion again. There was an unusually familiar aura inside. Qin Feiyong, Boss Qin. Fatso muttered, Silly brother. Ren Wushuang also muttered, It seems to be Uncle Qin. Situ Feiyong whispered. Finally, Qin Feiyong walked out of the pavilion and entered everyone's line of sight. Looking at this familiar face and this familiar smile, this group of people was immediately stunned in the void. It seems to be Uncle Qin, Ling Xiaoyan muttered. Although she was very young back then, Qin Feiyong left a deep impression on her, because back then, Qin Feiyong gave her the soul-calming divine pearl. This divine artifact had been protecting her soul since she was young. Therefore, every time she saw the soul-calming divine pearl, she would think of this uncle. At this moment, Mermaid Princess also walked out of the pavilion and stood beside Qin Feiyong, looking up at everyone. She's back too. In that case, after she was kidnapped by those two back then, Qin Feiyong rescued her. Everyone looked at the Mermaid Princess again, and the murderous aura on their bodies gradually disappeared, replaced by excitement. Back then, Old Hai of the Blood Hall brought Pei Wanli, the grandson of Pei Tianhong, to the Great Qin to kidnap the Mermaid Princess. All these years, they had been worried about it. Now, not only did Qin Feiyong come back alive, but he also brought the Mermaid Princess back. How could they not be happy? You brat, how dare you lie to us? Coming back to his senses, Ling Yunfei mercilessly kicked Qin Ji on the spot. Qin Ji hurriedly dodged and said innocently, Brother Ling, this wasn't my idea. It was Brother Wolf's idea. Brother Wolf? Ling Yunfei was stunned and scanned the crowd below. He didn't see the white-eyed wolf. Daughter. At this moment, a space-time tunnel appeared, accompanied by a cry. A middle-aged man in a golden robe quickly ran out. It was the Mermaid Princess' father, the current Mermaid Emperor. Father, the Mermaid Princess' eyes trembled and hurriedly looked up. When she saw that familiar face, tears immediately flowed down her face. Then, she hurriedly flew into the sky and hugged her father. The Mermaid Emperor, Blackwing Emperor, and Whitewing Emperor also walked out of the space-time tunnel. Behind them were the current White-Wing Emperor and Blackwing Emperor. Looking at the Mermaid Princess, their faces were also filled with joy. Qin Feiyong took a step forward and landed beside the Mermaid Emperor and the other two. He smiled and said, I thought you guys would stay in the undersea city for a while. The Blackwing Emperor looked at the father and daughter hugging each other and said with a smile, There's no other way. He knew that his daughter was back, so he couldn't wait to come to the capital. It's really you. The Black Wing Emperor and White Wing Emperor stretched out their hands and patted Qin Feiyong heavily on the shoulder. Yeah, are you surprised? Qin Feiyong bared his teeth. Don't be so smug. Looking at you makes me annoyed, you know? The Black Wing Emperor rolled his eyes. The White Wing Emperor said, But you didn't let us down. You saved our daughter. Otherwise, we would have fought you to the death. Qin Feiyong scratched his head. These words were true. Now, the Black Wing Emperor and the White Wing Emperor both treated the mermaid princess as their daughter. Moreover, even if the two of them didn't fight him to the death, his father-in-law would definitely not let him off easily. Daughter, you weren't bullied, right? Do you know how worried I was when you were kidnapped by the people from the 4th level when you married that stinking brat? The Mermaid Emperor looked at his daughter in front of him and said with a tearful smile, I'm fine. Before entering the 4th floor, Feiyong, Brother Wolf, and Brother Feng Z caught up and saved me from the hands of those two people. I'm sorry to have worried you. The mermaid princess blamed herself. What nonsense are you talking about? You're my daughter. If I'm not worried about you, who should I be worried about? The Mermaid Emperor scolded with a smile, then looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong hurriedly walked over and bowed. Father-in-law, please lecture me. The Mermaid Emperor really wanted to scold him, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but want to laugh. He hadn't even opened his mouth, and he already knew that he was going to lecture him. Did you see that? No matter how awesome a person is, in front of my father-in-law, he has to tuck his tail between his legs. Ling Yunfei, Fatso, and Lu Zheng gathered together and laughed. Lu Hong, Zhao Shuang, and Lian looked at the three of them with their arms around each other's shoulders and couldn't help but roll their eyes. Father, this has nothing to do with Feiyong. It's the people of the Sky Cloud realm who are unreasonable, and those two people have already paid the price. The mermaid princess looked at her old father and pleaded for Qin Feiyong. You little girl, I haven't even said what I'm going to do to him, and you're already siding with him. A married daughter is like spilled water. The Mermaid Emperor looked at his daughter with dissatisfaction. He's my husband now. If I'm not siding with him, who should I side with? The Mermaid Princess giggled. Yes. Now that you have a husband, you've forgotten about your father. Sigh, it seems that you've already forgotten. When you were young, I was both a father and a mother. How hard I worked to raise you. The Mermaid Emperor said with a sad face. I didn't. The Mermaid Princess hugged her father's arm and acted like a spoiled child. End of chapter. Chapter 43, 75. All right, stop shaking. My old bones are about to fall apart. The Mermaid Emperor patted his daughter's forehead lovingly and smiled. As the saying goes, love the house and its crow. How can I blame him? Thank you, father. You're the best. The Mermaid Princess leaned on her father's arm and felt at ease. The Mermaid Emperor looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Kid, you brought my daughter back. I won't hold it against you, but you can't escape punishment. Ah, Qin Feiyong was stunned. If he didn't hold it against him, then so be it. Why did he have to punish him? The Mermaid Emperor looked at the Mystic Tharch couple and smiled. In-laws, don't you think so? The couple was stunned. What did he mean? Why did he sound so strange? However, when they saw the Mermaid Emperor winking at them, the couple suddenly understood what the Mermaid Emperor meant and nodded in agreement. What are you trying to do? As the parties involved, Qin Feiyong and the Mermaid Princess looked at the three of them in confusion. The Mermaid Emperor looked at the two and said without hesitation, You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. You must quickly, no, you must immediately give birth to a child for us. Ah, Qin Feiyong and Mystic Tharch were stunned. Of course, it's not a problem if you want to have a few more. And you don't need to take care of them. We'll take care of them for you." The mermaid emperor laughed. The mystic Tharch and Lu Chiyu were also smiling. Qin Feiyang and the mermaid princess looked at each other helplessly. Mu Qing was right. She started to urge them as soon as she came back. "Why aren't you two talking? Don't tell us you don't have such plans. What's the name of your good friend in the ancient world?" Yes, Hui. His son is already going around to hook up with girls. You two still haven't found anything." Emperor Hong and Emperor Qin also spoke. "Grandfather, father, what are you talking about? What do you mean by going around seducing little girls? Don't ruin the reputation of others." "That Yi Shaochuan is quite honest." Lu Chuyu looked at the two old men speechlessly. "We're just making an analogy." Emperor Hong waved his hand. "Cough, cough. We really haven't thought about it yet." "That Qin Haotian, Qin Ji, Qin Yi work hard." Qin Feiyang coughed dryly and turned his attention to Qin Haotian, Qin Ji, and Qin Yi. When the three brothers heard this, they were immediately enraged. "You can talk about yourself, but why are you dragging us into this?" Emperor Hong looked at the three brothers and said with a smile, "Haotian, little Yi, your big brother is right. You're not young anymore. You should work hard." "Huh. All right, we'll work hard." The three brothers laughed dryly. This was also the problem that troubled them the most. As soon as she returned, she would be urged to get married by these old men, especially Qin Haotian. In Great Qin, he had to face these old men every day. Moreover, as the current emperor of Great Qin, in the eyes of these old men, he should shoulder the responsibility of carrying on the family line. "Your attitude is too perfunctory. Especially you." Emperor Hong stared at Qin Haotian and said, "You're the emperor. You should have married a concubine long ago. But until now, you don't even have one. Tell me, how can we not be anxious?" Yes. Qin Haotian nodded repeatedly. What else could he say? He could only agree. "Don't just nod, you have to take action. Since your big brother is back now, let him help you find a wife. Not many, just a few dozen. After all, you have to deal with state affairs, and your energy is limited." Emperor Hong chuckled. "What, a few dozen? Not many? Great-grandfather, you really treat me as a child-making machine." Qin Haotian smiled bitterly. "Who asked you to be the emperor? Theta Wang Palace, 6 courtyards. There should be at least a few dozen." Emperor Hong laughed. "Then I won't be the emperor. Let Qin Ji and Qin Yi take it," Qin Haotian said with a black face. "Second brother, just say what you want to say. Why are you dragging us into this mess?" Qin Yi immediately looked at him with dissatisfaction. "If you want to blame someone, blame Big Brother. He dragged us into the water first." Qin Haotian said expressionlessly. Qin Yi suddenly stared at Qin Feiyang unhappily. "Ahem." Qin Feiyang coughed and hurriedly changed the topic, smiling. This problem, let's talk about it later. Let me introduce you." Boom! But before he could finish his sentence, more portals appeared one after another. Qin Li and Qin Yun returned. There were many old friends accompanying them. Yan Wei, Pei Yi, Gongsun Bei, Yishu, and so on. Moreover, there were a few familiar faces that he hadn't seen for a long time. Nether Scorpion, Nether Spider, Nether Ant, Golden Divine Leopard, and so on. When Qin Feiyang returned last time, he had asked Lu Qiyu about the Netherworld Scorpion and the others. These fellows were playing outside all day long, and their days were better than anyone else's. "Qin Li, didn't you say that something big happened? What's the situation now?" The Nether Scorpion was suspicious. "Ahem, take a look yourself," Qin Li said with a guilty conscience. He gave Qin Yin and the rest a look and quickly retreated to the side, in case these guys went crazy. The group of people was stunned and looked down. Qin Feiyang, what's going on?" Yi Shu, Yan Wei, and the few elders of the main tower were stunned. Am I dreaming? Yi Shu turned to look at Yan Wei. I don't know. Since the young master is back, then Xiaojie and Qin Qin should also be back. But I didn't hear any news when I was in the tribe. Yan Wei mumbled. Yan Wei's tribe and Wang Xiaojie's family were both in the first district of the Forgotten Continent, adjacent to each other. In fact, Wang Xiaojie deliberately didn't cause a commotion. In other words, he secretly went back to give Yan Wei a surprise. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, A few living people are standing in front of you. You still don't believe it? Pei Yi, your divine python tribe should be the strongest existence in the Forgotten Continent now. Brother Gong's son, Pei Yi didn't escape from the main tower, right? Back then, Gong's son Bei valued Pei Yi's talent and wanted him to enter the main tower to manage the affairs. But Pei Yi was unwilling. In the end, he had no choice but to set a trap for Pei Yi to enter the main tower. Hearing this, Gong's son Bei and Pei Yi couldn't help but look at each other. Now they believed that Qin Feiyang was really back. You bastard! I treated you as a brother, but you joined forces with brother Gong's son Bei to set me up. Pei Yi went forward and punched Qin Feiyang. Pei Yi was not only admired by Gong's son Bei, but also by Qin Feiyang. Back in the Forgotten Continent, Pei Yi was the first person he was willing to give a potential pill to. Moreover, Pei Yi was not close to him at that time. Ha! Qin Feiyang laughed and gave Pei Yi a big hug. No words were needed. Yi Shu glanced at the crowd and asked Qin Feiyang, Feiyang, where are Madam and Miss? The Madam and Miss here were naturally Tantai, Li, and Qin Rushuang. They are all in the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. So they are still alive? Yi Shu asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's good. Yi Shu breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone and the beasts present. Almost everyone he knew was here. As for Lin Yi, Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, Dong Jingyang, the demon ancestor, and Dong Jingyang, they all had their own wishes to fulfill, so there was no need to wait for them. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Then let's go to the Black Tortoise world now. Go to the Black Tortoise world? Why? Ling Yunfei was puzzled. Wasn't it good to be outside? Boss, don't tell me you've been outside for too long and looked down on our small place. Fatso frowned. What are you talking about? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Qin Haoqian said, Brother Fatty, brotherling, don't make a fuss. Big Brother wants us to go to the Black Tortoise world to broaden our horizons. It's not like we haven't been in the Black Tortoise world before. Ling Yunfei said. Fatso also said that's right. When we were in the Black Tortoise world, you were still wet behind the ears. Qin Haoqian smiled bitterly. However, his heart was heavy. Qin Li and the others also knew the difficulties of Qin Feiyang and the others. They could only stay in the Great Qin for 2 days, but they didn't know as clearly as Qin Haoqian. However, they all remained silent. After all, everyone was in high spirits now, and they couldn't dampen their spirits. Madman stopped Qin Feiyang and transmitted his voice. Wait, there's one more. Don't forget, it's your ancestor, Ji Tianyue. Qin Feiyang slapped his head and hurriedly looked at Mystic Emperor and Lu Qiu, asking, Father, Mother, where is this person now? While speaking, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and condensed Ji Tianyue's image. You know her? The couple was shocked. Emperor Hong, Emperor Qin, Qin Sheng, Sun Jian, Grandpa, and the others all looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang nodded. Who is she? For so many years, she has been in our Great Qin. Moreover, her strength is unfathomable. Qin Li and the others, with her help, all of their bloodlines have undergone ancestral awakening. Emperor Hong asked, I'll introduce you later. Now tell me, where is she? Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. We don't know where she is, but every few days she will come to the imperial capital to guide us in cultivation." Emperor Hong shook his head. Qin Feiyong heard this and turned to look at Uncle Yuan. Qin Yuan shook his head and smiled, saying, "No need to look for her, I know where she is. She has been living in seclusion by the sea. I have visited her several times over the years. She treats people well, but I don't know why. Every time I see her, I can see a trace of melancholy and worry in her eyes, and she often sighs." Qin Feiyong, Madman, and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other. Of course, they knew why Ji Tianyue was melancholy, worried, and sighing. It was because Long Chen had left her in Great Qin, making it impossible for her to return to the Divine Kingdom. The situation between the Sky Cloud Realm and the Divine Kingdom was like fire and water. She didn't want to see the Divine Kingdom destroy the Sky Cloud Realm, and she didn't want to see them go to war with the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan in order to protect the Sky Cloud Realm. "Let's go pick her up ourselves." White-Eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyong and sighed. Qin Feiyong and Madman nodded. Then Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Yuan and said, "Uncle Yuan, please send us over." "Okay." Qin Yuan waved his hand, and the power of law descended. Qin Feiyong and the others immediately disappeared without a trace. "Sister-in-law, what's going on?" Ling Yunfei looked suspiciously at the mermaid princess. This mermaid princess looked at Ling Yunfei, then at Emperor Hong and the others, and said hesitantly, "Let's wait for Feiyong to tell you personally." One could imagine how shocked everyone would be when they learned of Ji Tianyue's identity. Everyone looked at each other and could only suppress the doubts in their hearts and wait silently. End of chapter. Chapter 4376. Seaside. Waves of sea breeze blew over, and the air was slightly cold. At the edge of a cliff, the waves crashed against the rocks, and one could occasionally see large fish shuttling back and forth between the waves. On top of the cliff, there was a simple wooden building. It was 2 stories high and looked very old. It was also very simple, but it was very clean and had a kind of simple texture. Behind the wooden building was a verdant mountain with layers upon layers of mountains and towering vegetation. This was a place where few people came. The small wooden building was located here like a lonely old man, looking especially lonely. At this moment, at the edge of the cliff by the sea, a white-clothed woman sat alone on a bluestone. She held her chin with one hand and looked at the vast sea. Her expression was downcast, and her eyes were filled with melancholy. That's right. This woman was the princess of the Divine Kingdom, Ji Tianyue. After stripping away 3 ultimate mysteries, her cultivation had fallen to the lesser mastery sovereign realm. However, even so, she was an unshakable existence in the Great Qin, because she still grasped other laws. Although these laws had not been comprehended to the ultimate mysteries level, even if it was only the ultimate mysteries or the 5th mysteries, it was enough for her to stand at the peak of the Great Qin. Even in the ancient realm, no one could defeat her. Originally, she came to the Great Qin and was unable to return to the Divine Kingdom. She could completely let go of everything, not care about worldly affairs, and live a carefree life. She actually wanted to be more open-minded and indifferent. Since she was here, she would take things as they came. However, she could not do it. Every day, she could not help but think about the current situation between the Divine Kingdom and the Sky Cloud Realm. How was the relationship between Qin Feiyong and the group of children and the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan? It could be said that she spent every day in a state of anxiety. She also thought about returning to the Sky Cloud Realm, but the passage between the Nether King's Hell and the Sky Cloud Realm had collapsed. Even if the fire python wanted to help her, it was powerless. Sigh. All the worries and worries in her heart finally turned into a sigh. Swish! Just as she was about to get up, 3 figures suddenly appeared in the sky. It was Qin Feiyong, the madman, the white-eyed wolf. Ji Tianyue was slightly taken aback and quickly looked up. When she saw the 3 people in the sky, her gaze suddenly trembled. Why had these 3 little fellows returned to the great Qin Empire? Could it be the situation in the sky cloud realm was extremely bad? Were they forced back? Forefather. Qin Feiyang scanned the surroundings before landing in front of Ji Tianyue and bowing. You! Just as Ji Tianyue was about to say something, a trace of vigilance crept into her expression. We are not impostors. Qin Feiyang smiled as he took out a Heaven's Eye stone and held it in his hand. Ji Tianyue looked at Qin Feiyang and saw that his face did not change for a long time. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. She quickly walked up to Qin Feiyang and gave Qin Feiyang's forehead a hard knock on the spot. Ancestor, what are you doing? Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and looked at Ji Tianyue with a wronged expression. What do you think I'm doing? You're really good. You actually colluded with Long Qin and imprisoned me in the great Qin Empire. Ji Tianyue said angrily. Colluded? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said with a bitter smile, I'm really wronged. I didn't know about this at all. If you don't believe me, you can ask Senior Brother and the White-Eyed Wolf. Ji Tianyue was stunned and turned to look at the madman and the White-Eyed Wolf. We really didn't know. Back then, you gave the inheritance to Yun Ziang and disappeared without a trace. We looked everywhere for you. In the end, it was Long Chen who told us that you wanted to come to the great Qin Empire to take a look. The madman and the White-Eyed Wolf said. So it really wasn't your idea? Ji Tianyue asked. It really wasn't. This is Long Chen's personal behavior. However, I have to thank Long Chen for this matter. Otherwise, if I let you return to the divine kingdom alone, it's hard to imagine what would happen. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Ji Tianyue rolled her eyes and rubbed Qin Feiyang's head, saying with concern, It doesn't hurt, right? It hurts. My head is still buzzing. Qin Feiyang was extremely wronged, and his face was full of resentment. Do you still want to be beaten up? Ji Tianyue's face darkened. In any case, he was a peak sovereign. How could he be so weak? Huh. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly and asked with concern, Have you gotten used to the great Qin Empire after all these years? It doesn't matter where I am. Moreover, this is the Qin clan's territory. If there are no other reasons, I really want to stay here forever. Ji Tianyue smiled. Then you can stay in the great Qin Empire forever. While you're at it, you can also teach the descendants of the Qin clan. For example, didn't Qin Li and the other little guys achieve bloodline awakening with your help? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. You already know. Ji Tianyue was surprised. Yes. Before I came back, I went to the ancient realm and they told me. And this time, I also brought them back to the great Qin Empire and prepared to send them to the Black Tortoise realm for training. Qin Feiyang smiled. Training is fine, but don't be too bloody. These little fellows are quite promising. Just a little bit of polishing will do. Ji Tianyue chuckled. It seems that you are very satisfied with their performance. Qin Feiyang said. Yes. Ji Tianyue nodded, then looked at the 3 of them nervously and asked, Why did you suddenly come back? Could it be that the situation in the sky cloud realm? No. Don't worry too much. Leave everything to us. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand and comforted this old ancestor. No. Ji Tianyue was slightly surprised and said with displeasure, You brat, don't lie to me. How would I dare lie to you? This time, I came back mainly to visit everyone and also to bring someone to see you. Qin Feiyang smiled. That's right. The current situation in the sky cloud realm is better than you think. The madman and the White-Eyed Wolf also nodded. Is that so? Ji Tianyue still couldn't believe this answer and asked suspiciously, Who are you bringing to see me? Wait a moment. I'll call him out right away. Qin Feiyang smiled and transmitted his voice. Monarch, I've already found your daughter. I'm with her now. Are you ready? Hearing this, the lord, who was sitting alone in the tea garden, couldn't help but tremble. He got up and urged, "Quickly take me out." So impatient, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. With a wave of his hand, the lord immediately appeared beside him. Father? Ji Tianyue's expression suddenly froze. What's going on? Why was father with these three little fellows? The lord looked at his precious daughter in front of him and couldn't help but burst into tears. Father! Ji Tianyue's heart also ached. Her old father was already so old. Father misses you so much. The lord stepped forward and hugged Ji Tianyue, fearing that if he let go, his daughter would disappear in front of him. Your daughter also misses you. Ji Tianyue buried herself in her father's warm chest and couldn't stop her tears from gushing out. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and couldn't help but reveal a smile on their faces. In the past, when the lord said that he cared about his daughter very much, they still held a skeptical attitude. If he really cared, why would he hurt her? But at this moment, looking at the father and daughter hugging each other, they believed it without a doubt. It wasn't difficult to see that the lord cared more about his daughter than Heavenly Lord Ji. Heavenly Lord Ji? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Wasn't Heavenly Lord Ji also in the Black Tortoise realm? The siblings hadn't seen each other for a long time. Uncle. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang immediately sent a message to Heavenly Lord Ji. Heavenly Lord Ji was in seclusion, fusing the ultimate ultimacy of the strongest laws. When he suddenly heard Qin Feiyang's message, he couldn't help but open his eyes suspiciously and asked, "What's wrong?" "Come out for a while. I've prepared a surprise for you." Qin Feiyang thought. A surprise? Heavenly Lord Ji was taken aback and said with a dark face, "Don't be a trap." "How is that possible? I would never dare to trap you, uncle." Qin Feiyang chuckled. Hearing this, Heavenly Lord Ji couldn't help but roll his eyes. He got up and tidied his clothes. "I'm ready. Take me out." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. With a thought, Heavenly Lord Ji immediately appeared next to him. "Sister?" As soon as he came out, he saw the Lord and Ji Tianyue, and his eyes immediately trembled. "Brother?" Hearing Heavenly Lord Ji's voice, Ji Tianyue quickly looked up at him with a face full of joy. Then she ran out of the Lord's arms and ran to Heavenly Lord Ji. The brother and sister also hugged each other deeply. "Brother, I'm not dreaming, am I? Why are you and father in the Great Qin?" Ji Tianyue was both happy and nervous. She was happy because she was reunited with her father and brother. She was nervous because she was afraid that this was a dream. She woke up from the dream and everything disappeared. "You're not dreaming. It's really us." Heavenly Lord Ji comforted her and looked down at his sister, who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. He couldn't help but feel distressed and blamed himself. "It's all because of me, your useless brother, that you suffered so much in the Sky Cloud realm." Compared to the lively and cute sister before, she was completely different now. "No, as long as you and father still recognize me as your daughter and sister, I don't care about anything." Ji Tianyue shook her head. "Silly girl. Father and I have never forgotten about you. No matter what happens, no matter how the world changes, you will always be my sister and father's beloved daughter." Heavenly Lord Ji comforted her. The Lord beside him also nodded silently with tears streaming down his face. "How touching!" The madman shook his head. Even his eyes became a little moist. This is the relationship between father and daughter and brother and sister. No matter how much time passes, no matter how the years polish it, it will not decrease in the slightest. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. In this world, the people who truly care about you will always be your closest relatives. Your Majesty, your wish has finally been fulfilled. It seems that bringing him to Great Qin this time can be considered as doing a good deed. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Ha, I hear say. Qin Feiyang and the madman laughed secretly. To be able to see this father and daughter, this brother and sister reunion, it was really a joyful thing. End of this chapter. Chapter 43:77. After a long while, the three of them finally calmed down. Ji Tianyue looked at the two of them and asked in confusion, "Father, big brother, what's going on?" Putting everything else aside, just the relationship between the two of them and Qin Feiyang was enough for Qin Feiyang to bring them to the Great Qin. If we really want to talk about this, we won't be able to finish it in half a month. Come, let's sit down and talk. The king smiled. Don't be in a hurry to sit down. There's still a large group of people waiting for us in the imperial capital. Let's talk about it when we go to the Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyang said. Go to the Black Tortoise World? The king and heavenly Lord Ji looked suspicious. You've been in the Black Tortoise World all this time, so you don't know. Ice Dragon only gave us 3 days. I've already stayed in the ancient world for a day, so I can only stay in the Great Qin for 2 days. After 2 days, we have to return to the Divine Kingdom. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He has to care about this? The king frowned. He's very strong. What can we do? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and said, Also, I've already met the Divine Kingdom's ruler. The king and heavenly Lord Ji were shocked. I've even fought with him. Qin Feiyang said again. The two of them stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Qin Feiyang said, We'll talk about this when we go to the Black Tortoise World. Okay. The two of them nodded. Ji Tianyue didn't say anything from the beginning to the end. She looked at Qin Feiyang and the king with a strange expression. What are you looking at? The king asked suspiciously. Ji Tianyue glanced at the three of them and said, Father, why do I feel like you guys are in cahoots with each other? In cahoots with each other? The corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Ancestor, do you know how to speak? How can we be in cahoots with each other? You should say that we're like-minded and like-minded. White-eyed Wolf was speechless. He spoke as if they were villains. Ha! Ji Tianyue laughed dryly. It was indeed a bit of a misnomer. Let's go. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and opened a space-time passage. Madman suddenly stopped Qin Feiyang and said with a frown, Are you going to let the king and uncle appear in front of everyone like this? We're in Great Qin right now. Is that a problem? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Of course there's a problem. What if the people of the Divine Kingdom come to the Great Qin to investigate? Wouldn't they know that the king and uncle are in cahoots with us? Madman said. I don't think so. Qin Feiyang frowned. Don't be so confident. Better safe than sorry. Moreover, not everyone in the imperial palace is trustworthy. For example, those palace maids and guards. Madman said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and turned to look at the king and heavenly Lord Ji. He said with a smile, Then I'll have to trouble you two to go to the Black Tortoise World and wait for a while. How troublesome. The king's face was full of displeasure. Qin Feiyang said with a wry smile, No choice. Senior brother is right. We can't be careless now. All right, then hurry up. The king nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent the king and heavenly Lord Ji to the Black Tortoise World. Then he stepped aside and said to Ji Tianyue, Ancestor, after you. Brat. Ji Tianyue laughed and stepped into the space-time passage. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and followed with satisfied smiles. Autumn Rain Pavilion. Looking at the space-time passage in the sky, Ling Xiaoyan asked curiously, Brotherly, what is that? It seems very powerful. Qin Li smiled bitterly. Yen, This is a space-time passage. Of course it's powerful. A space-time passage? Ling Xiaoyan was even more surprised. A space-time passage can only be opened by comprehending the laws of space-time. Qin Li was about to explain, but then he thought that it was still too early for Ling Xiaoyan to comprehend laws. He smiled and said, "I'll tell you when you reach the 9 heavens realm." "Are you bullying me because I'm too young?" Ling Xiaoyan glared at him with dissatisfaction. "No, no. Who dares to bully you? Also, I've told you many times that you can't call me brother. You have to call me uncle. This is seniority." Qin Li was helpless. He was Qin Feiyang's younger brother and was in the same generation as Ling Yunfei. As Ling Yunfei's daughter, Ling Xiaoyan was naturally one generation lower than him. But since she was young, this girl had always called him brother. When facing Qin Yun and Qin Xian, she was no exception. She would always call them brother and sister. What made the 7 of them feel the most helpless was Lu Xiaojia, Lu Xiaofei, and Situ Feiyang also called them brothers. "I'll call you brother. Call me brother and be intimate." Ling Xiaoyan giggled. Qin Li was helpless. While they were talking, Ji Tianyue finally appeared. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 followed closely behind. It didn't matter that Ji Tianyue appeared in the imperial palace. It didn't matter even if the sovereign of the divine kingdom saw her, because everyone in the divine kingdom knew that Ji Tianyue had betrayed the divine kingdom. "I'm sorry to keep everyone waiting." Ji Tianyue smiled at the crowd. "It's fine." Emperor Hong waved his hand. The suspicion in his heart grew stronger. Why did he feel an inexplicable sense of intimacy every time he saw this woman? Emperor Chen, Emperor Xian, Qin Haotian, Qin Li, and the others also had the same feeling. Qin Li and the others didn't know Ji Tianyue's identity, because when they told Yi Zhong about Ji Tianyue's identity, there was no one else present except for Mu Qin. "Then let's go to the Black Tortoise world now." Qin Feiyang looked at the crowd and smiled. Everyone nodded. They were also curious about the current Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and everyone present disappeared without a trace. A group of guards and palace maids looked at this scene with admiration and envy. This was the guardian of Great Qin. He had an independent world, and he was the sovereign of that world. Black Tortoise world. Tea garden. What a terrifying soul vein energy! And the crystal vein energy. Even the human emperor palace can't compare to it. Qin Li and the others looked around, their eyes full of shock. "Stop joking. How can the human emperor palace compare to this?" White-eyed Wolf said with disdain. Yes. Can't compare. One is the sky, the other is the earth. They are not on the same level. Qin Xian gritted his teeth. Such a place really made people yearn for it. "Uncle Qin, are those all herbs?" Ling Xiaoyan pointed at the herb field outside the tea garden. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "So many herbs." "Brotherly, Sister Yin, look, is that the tree of fortune?" "It's the first time I've seen such a thick tree of fortune. This little girl is always curious about everything she sees. It's really thick." Qin Li and the others murmured. These tree of fortune, tree of divine infant, and so on looked like mountains from afar, towering into the sky. "Are these all tea trees?" Suddenly, someone stared at the surrounding tea trees. "Yes, they're all divine tea trees. Even in the sky cloud realm, it's rare to see them." Qin Feiyang explained patiently. "Divine tea trees." Everyone was dumbfounded. Emperor Hong, Emperor Chen, and the other elders couldn't help but have their eyes lit up. Lu Xiaofei ran to the Bodhi tree and looked at the Bodhi fruit on it. "Can this thing be eaten?" Just as he was about to pick one, Qin Feiyang hurriedly stepped forward and slapped the back of his hand, causing him to grimace in pain. "Why did you hit me?" Lu Xiaofei looked at him in confusion. "I hit you because I don't want you to move. Do you know what level of tea tree this is?" "The highest grade divine tea. Let me tell you, such a small leaf is worth more than your life." Qin Feiyang glared at him. "Is it that exaggerated?" Lu Xiaofei was not convinced. "This is divine Bodhi tea." Ji Tianhua walked in front of Qin Feiyang, looked at the Bodhi tree and murmured, "As far as I know, it seems that only Master Jiu has divine Bodhi tea. How can this kid have it?" Qin Feiyang heard Ji Tianhua's murmur and laughed. "Old ancestor, look at the other divine tea trees." Old ancestor? When the others heard this title, they couldn't help but be surprised. He actually called her old ancestor? What's going on? Ji Tianhua heard Qin Feiyang's words and couldn't help but look at the other divine tea trees. Soon. A trace of surprise crept up in her eyes. These tea trees were exactly the same as the ones in Master Jiu's tea garden? What's going on? Just as Qin Feiyang was about to speak, he suddenly saw two sneaky people not far away. They stuck their heads out and looked at them like thieves. It was the Lord and Heavenly Lord Ji. Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked, "What are you two doing over there?" "HM?" The others also looked at the Lord and Heavenly Lord Ji. Then, everyone's eyes narrowed. Even though the monarch and Heavenly Lord Ji had concealed their auras, everyone could still feel a strong sense of danger from them. They were like two terrifying deities. The Lord and Heavenly Lord Ji were stunned and walked out suspiciously. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Didn't you say that we can't let others know that we're in the Great Qin?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. "That's when there were many maids and guards outside. But now we're in the Black Tortoise realm. Everyone here is on our side. What are you afraid of? You should have said so earlier." The two of them glared at Qin Feiyang and immediately rushed to Ji Tianhua's side and asked about her well-being. "Now, let me introduce you." Qin Feiyang looked at Yan Wei and the others, pointed at the white-eyed wolf sitting at the stone table, and said with a smile, "You must be curious about who this guy is. I'll tell you the answer now. He's the white-eyed wolf you're familiar with." Because Yan Wei and the others didn't know the white-eyed wolf's identity yet. "The white-eyed wolf? Damn, it's you. I felt that your energy was a bit familiar. I didn't expect you to turn into a human. Didn't you hate it before?" "What's going on now?" Pei Yi and Gong Sun Bei looked at the white-eyed wolf in surprise and asked. "It's none of your business." The white-eyed wolf snorted. "What's the big deal? They're all looking at me like I'm a monkey." "Because he's found his true love, so he's more concerned about his image now." Qin Feiyang chuckled and introduced Fire Dance, Crazy Z, Zhuo Xiaoxian, and Li Feng one by one. Chapter 4378. Fatso stared at Fire Dance and suddenly grinned. "Brother Wolf, I really didn't expect that you could actually find." However, before he finished speaking, the white-eyed wolf went up and slapped him. Fatso didn't have the chance to say anything else. "What?" Fatso stared angrily at the white-eyed wolf. "Not letting people speak?" "You don't have to open your mouth. I know what you want to say. So you just shut up." The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Fatso smiled. Sure enough, brothers were still brothers. No matter how many years had passed, he still understood him. Qin Feiyang looked at Ji Tianhua, the monarch, and Ji Tianjun, and looked at Emperor Hong and the others. "Next, I will introduce the three of them to you." Immediately, everyone's attention was focused on the battle, because Ji Tianhua's identity had always been what they wanted to know the most. Qin Feiyang said, "You should be very puzzled. Why would I call her ancestor?" "Because she is the ancestor of our Qin clan." "What?" Emperor Hong Emperor Chen and Emperor Xian had just sat down. Hearing this, they suddenly stood up and stared at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Haotian, Qin Li, and the others also looked at each other. What did Big Brother say just now? This woman was the ancestor of their Qin clan? Was there a mistake? I know that this news is very shocking and difficult for you to accept, but this is the truth. The closeness you feel when facing her comes from the power of bloodline. Her name is Ji Tianyue, the princess of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan, the wife of the human emperor. And my Qin clan originated from her and the human emperor. Qin Feiyang said. Ji Tianyue, the princess of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan, the wife of the human emperor. Everyone murmured. Was there really a purple gold divine dragon in this world? And it was a race? Since it was a race, it was impossible for there to be only one purple gold divine dragon. Human emperor? Who was this person? The human sovereign is the leader of the human race in the sky cloud realm. However, he died in battle many years ago. But he and his wife left behind a son, allowing the Qin clan to continue. This son is the Qin Batian that we all know. Qin Feiyang once again revealed something that shocked everyone present. Qin Batian is the son of her and the human emperor? If that's the case, isn't she Qin Baishan's biological mother? Everyone was shocked. Father's birth mother, Emperor Hong muttered. Grandpa's birth mother, Emperor Qin murmured. All of a sudden, Emperor Hong looked at Qin Feiyang and exclaimed, Then isn't she my biological grandmother? That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Grandma, Emperor Hong's gaze trembled, turning his head to look at Ji Tianyue. The question that had puzzled him for so many years was finally answered at this moment. It turned out that all of this was not without a reason. She helped them, taught them, and even made Qin Li and the other children's bloodline reversion. He thought that she was just a kind-hearted expert. However, he did not expect that she was his father's birth mother, his biological grandmother. One could imagine. Emperor Hong, who had learned the truth, how would he feel at this moment? Emperor Chen, Emperor Xian, Qin Haotian, and Qin Li looked at Ji Tianyue, their hearts unable to calm down for a long time. Fatso swallowed his saliva and asked, Boss, you mean that the Qin clan originated from the sky cloud realm? Yes. Because of some factors, our ancestors drifted to the Great Qin Empire, which was the Heavenly Sun Empire. When the Heavenly Sun Empire was destroyed and the Great Qin Empire was established, our Qin clan took root in the Great Qin Empire. Qin Feiyang nodded. Human Emperor, the leader of the human race, I can tell that he is a very great person. Fatso murmured. He really did not expect that the Qin clan had such a great background. Ling Yunfei asked again, According to you, this old ancestor, her original body is the purple gold divine dragon? And your purple gold dragon blood all came from her bloodline power? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Ling Yunfei heard and looked at Fatso and the others. This Ji Tianyue was really an ancestor-level person. Suddenly, Emperor Hong ran in front of Ji Tianyue, knelt on the ground, and said respectfully, Unfilial son Qin Hong greets grandmother. Great-grandmother. Emperor Qin also hurried forward and knelt on the ground. Great-grandmother. Emperor Xian did not dare to neglect, and immediately brought Lu Qiu forward to kneel. Qin Haotian, Qin Li, and the others also ran over and knelt behind Emperor Xian and Lu Qiu. Not only them, Qin Yuan, Old Qin, Qin Sheng, Great-Grandpa, Sun Jian, Lu Zheng, and so on. In short, everyone present bowed and saluted. Get up. Ji Tianyue personally helped Emperor Hong up, looked at the others and said with a smile, Everyone is a family, no need to be so polite. In an instant, Ji Tianyue's status in everyone's eyes became different. Qin Baishan's birth mother, was this a joke? No one dared to be presumptuous. Grandmother, grandson is guilty. Emperor Hong sighed. What's wrong? Ji Tianyue asked with a smile. After being together for so many years, grandson did not recognize you, and even at the beginning, I was wary of you. I really lived in vain. Emperor Hong's heart was full of self-blame and guilt. I don't blame you. This is my fault. I did not confess my identity to you at the first time. Ji Tianyue smiled slightly. Why didn't you say it directly? Why did you hide it from us for so many years? If Fei Yong did not tell us now, how long would you hide it from us? Emperor Qin looked at Ji Tianyue in confusion. Ji Tianyue looked at Emperor Qin and sighed. In fact, I have been hesitating whether to tell you or not. Why are you hesitating? If you tell us, we will definitely take good care of you and be filial to you. Don't you want to acknowledge us? Emperor Qin asked. No. How can I not want to acknowledge you? It's just that things are very complicated. I dare not acknowledge you. Ji Tianyue sighed. Dare not? Emperor Hong, Emperor Qin, and Emperor Xian were full of doubts. Ji Tianyue looked at the monarch and Emperor Ji, and then looked at Qin Fei Yong and the others and sighed. For some reason, I have always wanted to leave the great Qin, so I don't want to be a burden to you. What's the reason? Emperor Hong and the others were suspicious. This. Ji Tianyue hesitated. Qin Fei Yong stood out and looked at Emperor Hong and the others. He said with a smile, Great-grandfather, father, it wasn't easy for us to meet the old ancestor. Don't ask so many questions. It's so disappointing. Emperor Hong and the others looked at each other and nodded. Yes, we won't ask. They were not stupid. Obviously, whether it was Ji Tianyue or Qin Fei Yong, what were they deliberately hiding? However, they knew Qin Fei Yong. Since Qin Fei Yong was unwilling to say, it must be for their own good, so there was no need to get to the bottom of it. Besides, on the other hand, as long as they could recognize Ji Tianyue, other things were not so important. Then I will continue to introduce. This is Emperor Ji. He is also a purple-gold divine dragon, and his other identity is Ji Tianyue's biological brother, and he was once the patriarch of the purple-gold divine dragon clan. Qin Fei Yong walked to Emperor Ji's side and looked at everyone with a smile. Grandma's biological brother? The patriarch of the purple-gold divine dragon clan. Emperor Hong's eyes trembled, and he hurriedly bowed and said, Greetings, uncle. According to seniority, Emperor Hong should indeed address Emperor Ji as such. Emperor Chen, Emperor Xian, Qin Haoqian, and the others also hurriedly bowed. This was another one of his blood relatives. Uncle, how is it? Our Qin clan can be considered to be flourishing. Qin Fei Yong looked at Emperor Ji and bared his teeth. With just a few people, you still have the nerve to say that the clan is flourishing? Emperor Ji rolled his eyes. Those families outside, even if it was just an inconspicuous small family, had at least 70 to 80 direct descendants, if not 100. And now, the descendants of the Qin clan, including Qin Batian, Emperor Hong, Emperor Chen, and Emperor Xian, were only a dozen. Qin Fei Yong heard this and immediately revealed a mocking smile. Originally, he wanted to get a compliment from Emperor Ji, but in the end he was met with a roll of the eyes. Uncle? However, at the same time, Ji Tianyue, Emperor Hong, and the others couldn't help but look at Qin Fei Yong in astonishment. What was going on? Why did this kid call him uncle? Emperor Xian came back to his senses and immediately said angrily, Little brat, don't mess up the seniority. Ah, Qin Fei Yong looked at Emperor Xian. You are a junior, several generations away. How can you call him uncle? Indecent. Emperor Xian angrily rebuked. Emperor Hong and Emperor Qin were also angry. Ah, Qin Fei Yong looked at them in astonishment and said with a mocking smile, Isn't it because the seniority gap is too big and I don't know how to address him, so I call him uncle. Besides, he doesn't have any objections. I have a lot of objections. Heavenly Lord Ji suddenly spoke with a straight face. Qin Feiyang looked at Emperor Ji in astonishment and said with a dry smile, Okay, it's my fault, I'll change, okay? If he didn't hurry up and admit his mistake, he would probably be beaten up by Emperor Hong, Emperor Chen, and Emperor Xian. Kid, haven't you always been lawless? Why are you afraid now? The monarch looked at Qin Feiyang with schadenfreude. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and walked to the king's side. He looked at Emperor Hong and the others and said, This is our ancestor, human emperor's father-in-law, which is also our ancestor's grandfather. The group was dumbfounded on the spot. Ancestor human emperor's father-in-law. Wasn't that Ji Tianyue's biological father? This seniority was even higher. A true ancestor-level existence. Forget about the etiquette. You descendants of the Qin clan did not let down the power of my purple gold divine dragon clan's bloodline. Especially a certain kid. Not only is he the pride of your Qin clan, but also the pride of my purple gold divine dragon clan. The king looked at the group of people and smiled. This certain kid was naturally Qin Feiyang. When Emperor Hong and the others heard this, they all blushed with shame. The Qin clan was indeed very strong in the Great Qin, and was the #1 clan that no one could shake. But in the purple gold divine dragon clan, it was not even worth mentioning. I've finished introducing everyone. You guys take your time to chat. Let me entertain my promising younger brothers and sisters first. Qin Feiyang looked at Emperor Hong and the others and said with a smile, then turned to look at Qin Haotian and Qin Li, his eyes full of thought. End of chapter. Chapter 43, 79. Entertain us. Qin Haotian, Qin Li, and the other 6 were chatting happily. But when they heard this, they all turned to look at Qin Feiyang. They didn't know if they didn't look, but when they did, they were shocked. Seeing Qin Feiyang's eyes, an uneasy premonition rose in their hearts. At the same time, Emperor Hong and the others were also stunned at first. Then they smiled and couldn't help but look at Qin Haotian and the others with sympathy. Big brother, it's such a happy day. Why don't we do those things that affect the mood? Qin Yi smiled embarrassedly, realizing that something was wrong. He gradually began to retreat. Yes, big brother. We've already grown up. You don't need to worry anymore. Qin Xian also smiled flatteringly, ready to slip away at any time. Although so many years had passed, the scene of them training in the Black Tortoise world was still vivid in their minds. Those days were simply torture. Qin Xian, look at what you're saying. I'm the big brother. As the big brother, isn't it natural to worry about your younger siblings? Qin Feiyang chuckled. No need, really. We're not young anymore. We can worry about our own matters. It's not easy for you to come back, so you should spend more time with Dad, Mom, and Grandpa. Qin Xian quickly waved his hand, glanced around, and shouted, Run! Immediately, Qin Xian, Qin Yi, and Qin Yi the girl turned around and fled. Qin Haotian, Qin Li, Qin Ji, Qin Yun did not escape, because they were very tactful. This is the Black Tortoise world, and Big Brother is the ruler of the Black Tortoise world. Can you escape? Sure enough, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the power of rule force descended, imprisoning Qin Xian and the other 2 in the void. Big Brother, don't be so enthusiastic, we can't stand it. Qin Xian cried anxiously. Sister-in-law, can you control him? Qin Yi, the twins, also hurriedly asked the mermaid princess for help. Your big brother is doing this for your own good. The mermaid princess smiled. When the 3 heard this, they immediately despaired. If even sister-in-law didn't care about them, then who else could help them? Qin Haotian looked at the 3 of them and coughed dryly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said guiltily, Big brother, I'm the emperor of Great Qin now. You should give me some face. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He looked at Qin Haotian playfully and nodded. Okay, I'll give you face. Thank you, big brother. Qin Haotian was delighted. You're welcome. You are the emperor and have great responsibilities, so big brother will take special care of you. Qin Feiyang chuckled. When Qin Haotian heard this, his body stiffened and the smile on his face disappeared. His heart was filled with bitterness. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? If he had known earlier, he would have kept his mouth shut. Don't worry, I won't kill you. At most, I'll just lose a layer of skin. Qin Feiyang looked at the 8 people and laughed. Then, with a wave of his hand, he swept up the 8 people and disappeared without a trace. These brats are doomed. Fatso laughed, gloatingly. I can imagine their miserable days. Ling Yunfei nodded. You don't understand. It's their blessing to be trained by little Qin Zi personally. The white-eyed wolf glared at Fatso and Ling Yunfei and chuckled. Why don't I give you some guidance too? Don't. Our old bones can't stand the torment. Fatso and Ling Yunfei hurriedly waved their hands. What a joke! After being brothers for so many years, how could they not know this wolf cub's methods? To put it nicely, it was guidance. To put it bluntly, it was torture. Good for nothing. The white-eyed wolf despised them. However, these brats can be taught a good lesson. Fatso glanced at Lu Xiaofei, Lu Xiaojia, Situ Feiyang, and Ling Xiaoyan. Dad, don't trick us. Situ Feiyang immediately jumped up. Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia's faces also darkened. Were they trying to stir up trouble? However, Ling Xiaoyan seemed to be eager to give it a try. That was because she was still young and did not participate in that training. What do you mean by trick? This is for your own good. Fatso said angrily. That's right. Like Qin Li and the others, you will walk out of the great Qin Empire sooner or later. You must train well. Lu Zheng nodded, ignoring Lu Xiaofei and Lu Xiaojia's resentful gazes. I think we should forget about it. My daughter should just be a quiet young lady of a respectable family. Ling Yunfei said after hesitating for a while. Dad, I want to go and train. Ling Xiaoyan did not buy it. She looked at Ling Yunfei and said innocently. Ling Yunfei's expression froze. This little girl. How could she be so insensible? Couldn't she tell that Dad cared about her? He didn't want her to suffer? It's okay to go and train. Zhao Shuanger was silent for a while and nodded. My dear wife, can you bear to do that? Ling Yunfei said hurriedly. Can't you tell that our daughter has grown up and is gradually yearning for the outside world? If we don't let her train well now, she will definitely suffer when she goes out. Zhao Shuanger was helpless. Ling Yunfei heard and looked at Ling Xiaoyan. He could not bear to part with her. Swoosh! At this moment, Qin Feiyang was back. Lu Xiaofei, Lu Xiaojia, and Situ Feiyang became nervous. They kept praying in their hearts that he would not do anything to them. Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 of them and said with a smile, As an uncle, I will definitely not favor one and discriminate against the other. I will only think of my younger brothers and sisters and neglect you, my nephews and nieces. Uncle, dear uncle, it's okay. We don't care. Situ Feiyang smiled flatteringly. Yes. Even if you really neglect us, we won't say anything. Lu Xiaofei also hurriedly nodded in agreement. Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 of them in amusement and said, I didn't mention you guys just now because your way of training is different from theirs. What? Different? Is it more brutal? Lu Xiaofei's face turned pale with fright. No. Qin Haotian and the others are my younger brothers and sisters. I will definitely not be merciful to them, but you guys are all juniors. Naturally, I will take special care of you. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Please don't mention the word special care. I'm panicking when I hear it. Situ Feiyang hurriedly exclaimed. Special care? It was definitely not a good thing. You two are the most talkative. Qin Feiyang glared at Situ Feiyang and Lu Xiaofei. With a wave of his hand, the two of them disappeared without a trace. This is the result of talking too much. The one who talks the most will receive the most vicious beatings. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Truly a bunch of idiots who don't know how lucky they are. Madman shook his head, not worried about these little guys at all. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Boss, how do you plan to train them?" "I threw Qin Haoyan and the others into the desert of death. Lu Xiaofei and Situ Feiyang, these two brats, I did want to be merciful, but there was no other way. They talked too much, so I also threw them into the desert of death to accompany Qin Haoyan and the others." Qin Feiyang said. Everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. Indeed, as the white-eyed wolf said, the one who talks the most will receive the most vicious beatings. They asked for it. As for Xiaojia and Xiaoyan, Qin Feiyang looked at the two girls and said with a smile, "You two can go to my Black Tortoise World's holy ground. That is the place where the Black Tortoise World's geniuses gather. It will definitely be helpful for your growth. Moreover, I will instruct the holy ground's manager to take good care of you." Lu Xiaojia sighed in relief and quickly thanked Huang Xiaolong. Fortunately, she didn't talk too much like those two guys before, otherwise she would be in trouble. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the two disappeared. Then he secretly informed Pai Lupi and Theta Wang to give them the best resources and treatment. Of course, they also need to temper themselves properly. After all, as Zhao Shuang said before, if they don't experience some hardships, they won't understand the sinister nature of people's hearts. Sooner or later, they will suffer a great loss outside. These little guys are really blessed. Fortunately, they have you. Otherwise, I don't know how many detours they would have to take. Emperor Hong chuckled. Emperor Chen and the others nodded. At this time, another group of people came over. They were Tantai Li, Qin Rushuang, Dan Wangkai, Lei Bao, Blood Qilin, and so on. Madam Mississippi, Yi Shu, and the other elders of the main pagoda immediately greeted them. Dan Wangkai. Several young men and women also hurriedly ran towards Dan Wangkai Chao. These people were Wang Zicheng and the others. The reunion of old friends was naturally a joyous thing. Lei Bao, Blood Qilin, and other fierce beasts were also very familiar with everyone. As for Tantai Li, Emperor Hong had now let go of her and also treated her as a family member. And his attitude toward Qin Rushuang was also like his own sister, because Qin Rushuang and Emperor Hong were half-siblings. It was just that Emperor Hong couldn't accept this in the past, and Tantai Li and Qin Rushuang had to call Ji Tianyue mother and grandmother. Of course, Ji Tianyue had stayed in the Black Tortoise realm before and was no stranger to the mother and daughter. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, I also want to announce a piece of good news." "What good news?" Everyone looked at him suspiciously. "Big cousin, the inner demons are not dead." Qin Feiyang smiled. "What?" Grandpa and the others suddenly stood up. In these years, the greatest pain of the Lu family was Lu Jiajin's sacrifice, and they often thought of this poor child. But they didn't expect that Qin Feiyang would actually tell them today that the child was not dead. "Feiyang, is this true? Don't joke with us." Lu Qiu also looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, "Mother, would I dare to joke about this? They are all still alive, and their strength is not inferior to mine." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Then where are they? Hurry up and call them here." Lu Zheng urged. "They didn't come back." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "They didn't come back? Why?" Everyone was puzzled. "They have a mission, but I promise you that the next time I come back, they will come back with me." Qin Feiyang said, "I really miss them." Lu Qiyu sighed. Lu Jiajin was her nephew. She also treated the inner demons as her own children. And the sacrifice of the two back then was for Qin Feiyang, so she always felt sorry for them in her heart. But now it was all good. Both of them were not dead, and the knot in her heart that had been buried for many years could finally be untied. End of chapter. Chapter 40, 380. Qin Haoqian and the others were very bitter, but the atmosphere in the tea garden was very harmonious and there was endless laughter. Qin Feiyang also took out the Bodhi fruit and divine wine to entertain everyone. He usually couldn't bear to part with the Bodhi fruit. A moment later, Lu Qiuyu, Tantai Li Luo Qianxue, and Lu Yin wanted to cook personally. Mermaid Princess, Zhuo Xiaoxian, Fire Dance, Zhao Shuang, Qin Rushuang, and Ren Wushuang didn't dare to continue sitting. They all went to help. Soon, only a group of men were left in the tea garden, and Ji Tianyue, with her seniority, who dared to let her do it personally. Originally, with Tantai Li's seniority, she didn't need to do it personally, but no one could persuade her. For the entire day, no one talked about anything else. They put down everything to accompany their family and friends. During this period, Pei Daixin, Pei Hongyu, Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, Pai Lupi, Theta Wang, Pei Tianhong, the five-clawed golden dragon, and others all woke up from their seclusion, including the 6,000 secret guards. After all, they were Qin Feiyang's family. No matter what, they had to come out and get to know them. Looking at these people, Emperor Hong and the others were very gratified. It turned out that there were so many people fighting with Qin Feiyang. As for how strong their cultivation was, it didn't seem that important at this moment. There was only concern for each other in their eyes. A day passed just like that. With the time array, Qin Feiyang wasn't in a hurry at all. 10,000 years was enough for him to reunite with his family and friends. Early the next morning, in a courtyard, the king, Ji Tianjun, and Ji Tianyue sat around a stone table with a pot of hot tea on the table. Sister, that's the general situation. Ji Tianjun smiled slightly. Impressive. I didn't expect them to go to the Divine Kingdom and destroy the Sea Clan and Beast Clan. Ji Tianyue couldn't calm down for a long time. That's right. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, who would believe that they could shake such a powerful divine kingdom with just a few of them? The king shook his head and sighed. It seems that I've been worried for nothing all these years. Ji Tianyue smiled bitterly. He had thought that the divine kingdom and the sky cloud realm would fight to the death, but he hadn't expected that the human race, the divine race, and the purple-gold divine dragon race would be persuaded by Qin Feiyang to join forces against the central dynasty. You can rest assured now. The king smiled faintly. Yes, Ji Tianyue nodded. This time his heart was finally at ease, because this was the result she had been waiting for. Heavenly Lord Ji took a sip of tea and said with a smile, "But to be honest, it's all thanks to Long Qin keeping you in the great Qin Empire. Otherwise, the situation might be different." That's true. If you had returned to the Divine Kingdom, the sea beasts and the beast race would not have let you off, let alone the central dynasty. At that time, you will become a bargaining chip in their hands. At that time, our situation will become even more passive. The monarch nodded. This is the so-called man proposes, God disposes. Ji Tianyue shook her head and smiled. No, no, no. This is the result of man's calculation. Although you didn't reveal anything to Long Qin back then, Long Qin saw through your thoughts at a glance, so he deliberately kept you in the great Qin Empire. Sometimes we have to admit that these little guys are really powerful. It seems that nothing can escape their eyes. The king smiled bitterly. Even Father praised them so much. It seems that their performance in the Divine Kingdom is extraordinary. Ji Tianyue chuckled. I'm ashamed of myself. The king shook his head. Now he had no choice but to admit that he was old. What about the Central Dynasty? Is it easy to deal with them? Ji Tianyue asked. She knew nothing about the Central Dynasty. The king and Heavenly Lord Ji looked at each other and shook their heads. It's hard to say. Maybe they will face a battle. What are you talking about? It's early in the morning. At this time, Qin Feiyang walked over and looked at the three with a smile. You came at the right time. Come here. The king waved his hand. Qin Feiyang walked over. Heavenly Lord Ji poured a cup of tea and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Thank you, uncle. Qin Feiyang chuckled. The corner of Heavenly Lord Ji's mouth twitched. It seemed that this title couldn't be changed. Ji Tianyue looked at Qin Feiyang and said in amusement, You're good, kid. You can even get Lord Jiu's tea trees. You know, Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, just now father and big brother told me everything that happened in the divine kingdom. Ji Tianyue nodded. Ha! Qin Feiyang laughed dryly, sniffed the tea, and said, Actually, Lord Jiu is very kind. Kind. Ji Tianyue smiled bitterly. As a member of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon clan, how could she not know Lord Jiu's temper? He was indeed good to people. But if you had any ideas about his tea trees, even God wouldn't let you. The king put down the teacup and looked at Qin Feiyang seriously. There were too many people yesterday, so he couldn't ask. Now, tell me, how strong is that sovereign? Very strong. At the mention of the sovereign of the divine kingdom, Qin Feiyang's heart sank. How strong? The three of them were surprised. To be able to make Qin Feiyang say these two words, it was definitely not an ordinary kind of frightening. When I found him in the Nether King's Hell, I saw that he couldn't use the power of origin, so I thought that with my current strength I should at least be able to compete with him. However, I didn't expect that he also mastered the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, and all the ultimate meanings. Qin Feiyang said. What? The three of them were surprised. At that time he said that only by comprehending the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death can one be considered a true sovereign. Of course. Although this was somewhat unexpected, it was still acceptable. After all, he is the sovereign of the divine kingdom. However, the last killing technique he used was completely beyond my imagination. Qin Feiyang said, What killing technique? The three of them stared at Qin Feiyang nervously. I don't know either. However, I am certain that this killing technique was evolved from the law of death. However, its power far surpassed the ultimate meaning. In fact, even the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death is as insignificant as an ant in front of this killing technique. At that time, I activated 3,000 incarnations and all the ultimate meanings, but in the end, I couldn't block it at all. If not for Ice Dragon's timely intervention, I'm afraid I would have died in the Nether King's Hell. Qin Feiyang said solemnly. So strong? The three of them were dumbfounded. They simply couldn't accept this. Yes, against him I couldn't fight back at all. And because of this killing technique, we're now wondering if there is a new realm above the sovereign realm. Qin Feiyang said. A new realm? The three of them frowned. They had never heard of it before. They had always thought that mastering all the ultimate meanings was already the strongest existence. I have already asked Long Chen and Long Qin to inquire about this matter from Ice Dragon. Hopefully there will be some results. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He didn't dare to have too much hope. After all, Ice Dragon's temper was obvious to all. He might not tell Long Chen and his sister. I really didn't expect him to be so strong. If he has the origin force, wouldn't we have no chance of winning at all? The monarch was worried. That's why Dong Xingyang purposely told everyone to come back and not leave any regrets. I think Dong Xingyang has already seen our future. However, no matter what the final result is, I will do my best to protect the Divine Kingdom and the Skycloud realm. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. You can still smile? The monarch couldn't help but roll his eyes. He was almost worried to death. What else can we do? Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Heavenly Lord Ji pondered for a while and looked at the three of them. Now we only have one path, and that is to get rid of the central dynasty before the god returns to the divine kingdom. Get rid of the central dynasty first, the monarch murmured and nodded. That makes sense. The sea race and the beast race have already been destroyed. The biggest threat now is the central dynasty. As long as we can get rid of the central dynasty, when the divine kingdom's god returns, he will be a general without an army. Perhaps we can still fight. I think so too. However, it won't be easy to get rid of the central dynasty. Qin Feiyong sighed. What's wrong? Could it be that you have already investigated the central dynasty's foundation? The monarch was surprised. Not completely, just a part of it. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Then tell us quickly, the monarch urged. Qin Feiyong hesitated for a moment, still keeping it a secret from us. The monarch raised his eyebrows. It's not a secret. It's just that we don't want to put pressure on you. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Was there a need to keep it a secret with their current relationship? It doesn't look good. Heavenly Lord Ji looked at the monarch. Otherwise, Qin Feiyong wouldn't be so hesitant. The monarch took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyong. Tell me. I'm not that weak. If you tell me now, I can be mentally prepared in advance. Okay. According to our preliminary investigation, the Divine Kingdom's Death Army has a total of 10 teams. Qin Feiyong nodded and explained the situation in a simple and clear manner. What? After hearing this, the three of them suddenly stood up and their faces were filled with shock. This was too terrifying. 10 teams. Even if each team only had 10,000 people, that was still a total of 100,000 people. What did that mean? Right now, the God race, the human race, and the purple-gold divine dragon race, even if they combined the inheritances Qin Feiyong had given them, they were just a drop in the ocean compared to the Death Army. Besides, the 10 teams of the Death Army might add up to more than 100,000 people. Not to mention the dominator of the Divine Kingdom. The Death Army wasn't something they could fight against. They had never thought that the situation they were facing right now would be so bad. Actually, it's not that we don't have a chance of winning. 3,000 incarnations are our biggest trump card. Whether it's me, the two of you, or Lord Jiu, we can all fight against 3,000 incarnations. Qin Feiyong said, that may be the case, but the Death God army is simply too large. Grandpa and Grandma have 15 people. Including me, the Heavenly Lord, and you, there are only 18 people in total. Even if we include the inner demons, we only have 19 people. The monarch said, End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.